Chapter 126. A remote town in New Mexico. At this time, there was already thick smoke billowing, the fire was splashing everywhere, and the sound of burning and explosion of objects was heard from time to time. Not far away, the high-altitude aerospace carrier stopped here, and the images of Saitama and Thor were clearly visible on the ultra-clear display. All the agents are in their positions, and all the instruments are placed to monitor the strength of the two. Thor, I hope to find out where the limits of Saitama are. Nick Fury murmured while staring directly at the monitor with his eyes wide open. Whether Thor wins or loses, S.H.I.E.L.D. must invite him to join the Avengers project. As for how to invite him? Isn't his girlfriend an Earthling? Just give some benefits. Asgardians are so arrogant, it's impossible not to return their favors. Saitama, Prince Asgard, Thor, the first god of war, accept your challenge. Thor let the others go away, and he stepped back a few meters to face Saitama, and the hammer was thrown in his hand. Thor held Thor's hammer tightly in one hand, and stared at Saitama with a stern look, for the glory of Asgard in his heart, and at the same time knowing that it would be useless if he underestimated it. He saw Saitama's punch just now, and he wanted to do his best. Thor is undoubtedly a god of war of the 9 realms. He has been fighting for many years to cast his immortal legend. There are countless enemy corpses stepped under his feet. The killings for thousands of years are as many as 5 oceans. The ice-piercing killing intent filled the air, causing Coulson and other S.H.I.E.L.D. agents to shudder, feeling that they were slaughtered anytime and anywhere with a knife on their neck. At this moment of tension, when everyone's hearts were raised in their throats, Saitama suddenly said, dangling the salted fish eyes, "Has it started? I have to go elsewhere to see if there is a big sale." This sudden lightness made everyone present speechless. In such an atmosphere, I was still thinking about big sales and respecting everyone's emotions. Coulson stroked his forehead and said, "Saitama is indeed Saitama." Thor's eye sockets were cracked, and his eyes jumped out angrily, his eyes pierced with killing intent, and his muscles burst out. The Thor's hammer in his hand spins quickly, and his body begins to explode with the help of the hammer's supernatural power. In an instant, the black cloud presses down on the city, the wind roars, the thunder in the cloud roars, and the billowing current hurts the life. Kamui of the sky can't help but let others surrender very much. This is thunder. Saitama, pay for your words and deeds. Thor followed the hammer soaring into the sky, and shot into the thundercloud storm. The thunder and lightning intertwined, as high as a god, looking down. The crackling lightning followed Thor's hand up, and the panic-stricken thunder dropped a pale thunder into Thor's hammer like a god, suddenly emitting a wonderful light, and the magical energy fluctuations surged out. Then lightning mixed with a little magical energy blasted from the hammer and turned into a white python to attack Saitama on the ground. Advertisement. Hey! The air was scorched, and it was torn apart, and the concrete ground-like ground was melted into cracks before being touched by this sudden lightning. Everyone was dumbfounded, and they waited for the battle before they even started, letting them retreat again and again. "Ah, this is thunder and lightning, it seems a bit interesting." Saitama's listless expression and weak compliment were unbearable. The white python rushed towards Saitama's door, unstoppable along the way, biting like a sane creature. Bang! The sky is thundering, and the sky is shocked. Saitama's location turned into a white glow as if it had been dropped by a large flares, and the thunder snake rolled and roared. Everyone's eyes were stabbed with pain, and their ears were shocked to deafness. After a while, the thunder light faded and the dust settled. Everyone who wrapped Thor was stunned, and the whole person was stunned. Impossible, this voltage is already at least hundreds of billions of volts. No one can withstand it. An old man on the aerospace carrier who was wearing thick glasses and apparently did not pay much attention to the news kept shouting in front of the screen. In his hand, he was fiddling with the instrument, and he looked like a dead father and mother. Obviously his 3 views were broken. Nick Fury clutched the edge of the console tightly, gritted his teeth and said, "Not enough." Nick Fury clutched the edge of the console tightly, gritted his teeth and said, "Not enough." I saw a large black hole about 10 meters long and about 5 meters deep that appeared in the eyes of everyone. There were many crystals that burst due to extremely high temperatures. Standing in the center is Saitama wrapped in strips of rags. What makes people's eyes shrunk so sharply is that apart from the ragged clothes, there is no blood on Saitama, only a little red mark. I think it was caused by thunder and lightning. This kind of defensive ability is to directly use the body to resist. Sif covered his mouth in surprise. "Hey, Fake it, completely withstand Thor's greatest thunder, and the result is a few more stamps. The face of one of the swordsmen among the fairy palace warriors was wrinkled. That's it. Thor, too, what? Saitama looked up at Thor, who was standing in the center of the mid-air storm, with a blinding expression. Hello. After a pause, he said, well, I'm really disappointed. False god, then it's over. No. It's not over yet, I'm Thor. Thor snarled unwillingly, his eyes were red, and Thor's hammer in his hand was thrown directly on the thundercloud, as if it had swallowed everything, and countless bolts of lightning were inhaled. At this moment, Thor's hammer exuded a terrifying energy field, mixed with pale thunder light, and the crackling thunder resounded across the sky. Drink. Advertisement. Thor suddenly swung down, and the Thor's hammer in the sky immediately turned white. Meteors crashed down from the sky, and everyone could only see a little starlight falling down. In the next instant, everyone lost all 5 senses due to tinnitus and hearing loss. This hammer. Saitama didn't change his face, and narrowed his eyes, telling him instinctively that the hammer was really good, and he stepped on the ground like a cannonball to meet him. The right hand sticks out not into a fist but spreads out into a palm and slaps the hammer. The golden white energy suddenly burst out from the center of the collision, forming a torrent of torrents that swept in all directions, and the flat roof was directly destroyed into slag. All others just felt like a hurricane passing by, and dense cracks bloomed on the surface, and the body was involuntarily lifted off. Go out! The dark clouds in the sky were immediately dissipated by the impact, and all of a sudden, there was no cloud in the sky, and the sky was clear and blue. On the throne of Asgard, Loki's eyes stared straight, and his chin was pulled straight down, his tongue exploded, his face full of horror. How is it possible? How could this be? This damn Midgard! Rocky! A magnificent and majestic voice came from behind Loki. He couldn't help turning his head to look around, trembling in his heart, and said in horror, why didn't you fall asleep? Rocky, you disappointed me so much. A grey-haired, single-eyed old man, his eyes full of vicissitudes and wisdom, wearing white pajamas as if he had just woke up, step by step approached Loki. But Loki retreated in panic while holding Odin's scepter. This old man is the Lord of the 9 realms, the King of the Gods, the Father of Heaven, Odin. Odin came to Loki, who was panicking 2 or 3 steps like leaping into space. He said disappointedly, I see everything, Zhao Zhao, everything you do. I didn't expect you to do such stupid things just because of your identity. Haha, isn't it because I am the son of Frost and I was excluded from the prince? Odin is not fair at all. Seeing this, Rocky just broke the jar and said hysterically, knowing the difference between the two. Oh, calm down and reflect on it. Odin sighed, then waved his hand, and Loki felt that his whole body was imprisoned, and then he dragged him out of the palace like physical energy. Odin, I'm not convinced. Thor is not a qualified king at all, haha, he is even Thor's hammer, Shut up. Odin glared, and said nothing. Earth, a suburb of Manhattan, Suemo scratched his head and said in a melancholy speech, this is a big trouble. In the small town of New Mexico, a happy and funny voice spread all over the country. Me, Thor Saitama. Chapter 127. The vast sea of energy washed through Saitama's body, and a powerful repulsive force burst out from the hammerhead formed by the central part of the declining planet. Shock waves swelled the sky, and then Saitama changed the shot to clasp the hammer firmly, and the thunder on it kept hitting the palm of his hand. Let go, mortal, you are not a qualified person. All the majestic voices spread into Saitama's mind, and the spiritual storm invaded Saitama's spiritual will. Who cares whether you are or not, you idiot? Saitama's bright forehead veins exploded directly from this mental invasion, and the majestic star-like power burst out from the body directly and enveloped the entire Thor's hammer along the arm. There was a chilling aura surging, as if the supreme power directly shattered the mysterious magic on the hammer, and the endless ocean impact poured into the hammer. Afterwards, the resistance to thunder and lightning became less and less, and it became silent, and the light that radiated was also dim. Saitama was all bewildered, clutching the hammerhead and falling to the ground lightly, dangling saltfish eyes looking at the black-grey Thor's hammer. With his backhand grabbing the grip made of the wood of the world tree, Saitama waved his hand, facing Thor, who had fallen from mid-air, and his face seemed to be a childlike joy of getting something funny. Saitama yelled, I am Thor Saitama, and then the Thor's hammer was rotated in a similar manner, but the weather was clear without lightning and thunder. 907. Saitama tried it too to see if he could fly down the sky, but in his hand was just an ordinary hammer. He was surprised for a while and shouted, "Hey! Where's the lightning?" Saitama hasn't had such frequent emotional fluctuations for a long time, and since he killed the weird person in a second, the emotions and sorrows have become more and more distant. It's not that his feelings have disappeared, but Saitama is still emotional from the big sale and the game. It's just that because he is too strong and often spikes, there is no need for him to show his emotions. This time Saitama was surprised that the lightning on Thor's hammer could slightly hurt him, and the mood in his heart began to fluctuate. Saitama grabbed the hammer when he thought about the hammer like a child. Impossible. It is impossible for an unqualified person to pick up Thor's hammer. Thor, who fell on the ground, was full of shock and roared angrily. He almost lifted his braid after so much hard work, but a Midgard man picked it up like this. It was a big laugh. Later, after seeing Saitama playing with no results, he couldn't help laughing. Sure enough, you can't use thunder and lightning, because Thor is me. Advertisement, damn it, how come there is no lightning? Saitama waved it and there was nothing, that is, the items sold in the store are not consistent, and said depressed, "Who said that? Wait and see if I strike you with lightning." Jiluosi ran over at this time and said, "Teacher, only those who are qualified according to Norse mythology can pick up and become Thor." The teacher is not recognized, but he picks it up abruptly. The magic inside seems to be destructive, but the divine power inside does not echo the teacher. Unless the teacher, you can use some energy to get in touch with the divine power. The data stream slipped past the scanning eye, thanks to Asgard's visit in ancient times, leaving some myths mentioning Thor's hammer. Saitama was dazed, and asked in confusion, "Energy?" Saitama is not a superpower who neither breathes fire nor spit out ice, nor is he a telepathic mind control master, all he uses is his fist. What is used is the ultimate strength, in the true sense of one force, breaking the 10,000 laws. Apart from this, he doesn't know anything, just as Shield said that the spiritual soul is probably Saitama's weakness. Just now, Odin left on the hammer with the magic of the spirit and attacked Saitama. Saitama felt severe pain after a long absence. The colic from the depths of his mind burst out with a serious punch and defeated the magic above and made his words invalid. The colic from the depths of his mind burst out with a serious punch and defeated the magic above and made his words invalid. The lack of energy and divine power to establish a connection means that Thor's hammer is a hammer in Saitama's hands, a relatively strong hammer. How could this happen? Saitama said depressed. Seeing this, Thor happily said, "Return the hammer to me, it's useless in your hands. Asgard's artifact will only, dust in your hands." When Saitama heard this, he was frustrated and shouted, "Who said that? It's pretty good." As soon as the voice fell, the figure disappeared in place. Thor secretly said that it was not good, and quickly watched his surroundings. Thor without a hammer is weaker than a tiger without teeth, and he does not generate electricity, and his physical fitness is much stronger than others, but in front of Saitama, he is a chicken. No matter how vigilant Thor was, he couldn't see Saitama's figure. A dark figure appeared behind him, and the four people in the fairy palace changed their faces and shouted, "Behind Duan!" Advertisement. Thor was too late to react, his head was hit hard, and his body fell directly to the ground with a deep sense of coma. Saitama knocked Thor fainted with a hammer and clapped his hands, only to find that the clothes had been striped, and he gave him an embarrassing hug. Thor. Jane waited for a group of people to rush up, check it and find that there was nothing serious about them before they felt relieved. After all, Saitama is merciful to non-weirds, and the hungry wolves have escaped several times. Saitama shook the hammer in his hand and said boredly, "Let's go, Jiluosi, let's go to the next supermarket." "Yes, teacher." Jiluosi followed closely behind her. Sif and the others wanted to say returning the hammer, but they opened their mouths and never said it. Thor was all on the street, they didn't go to deliver food anyway. Just as Collison took a deep breath, and the sigh finally ended, a rainbow of colorful Madara came down from the sky and blasted beside Thor. Aroused a burst of exclamation. A figure crossed the space from the source of Hongqiao and appeared on the surface. A golden armor, a golden helmet on his head, an old face, a black eye patch, and a piercing, majestic white-haired old man with only one eye left. With his appearance, the audience was filled with an extremely depressing atmosphere, and the air was extremely heavy. When the four of the fairy palace saw this, their expressions changed drastically, and they knelt down on one knee in a panic and respectfully said, "Your Majesty." Odin narrowed his one-eyed face and said with no expression, "Take Thor back, he has realized his shortcomings." The four of them are happy. Odin's return with the watch is over for Rocky, and Thor will be the destined king of Asgard. Then please return the Asgard treasure, Mjolnir. Odin turned his head to face Saitama, who was about to leave, and said calmly, "Thor is immature and reckless in doing things. Of course Asgard will use other compensations to compensate Mjolnir. God King Odin, it's not good to say that, I remember Thor is more than 1,500 years old." Suemo suddenly flashed right beside Saitama, and said without mercy, "This is not the age for immaturity." Chapter 128. Sumo's sudden appearance was really shocking, and Odin stared at Suemo deeply. As the monitor of the Nine Realms, Heimdall completely recorded the encounter between Thanos and Suemo and reported to Odin. Although Thanos is not a god, he can be said to be powerful as the overlord of the universe. However, he fell in the hands of a Midgard. Such a character will of course attract Odin's attention and even vigilance. He deeply knows that sleep cannot stop the end of life. The future of the Nine Realms is probably not a stagnant pool like this. Asgard's god of death Twilight may not be able to stop it. Hetenton is dying in sorrow, but the two babies have not been able to live up to it, and they always sing against him. You are not angry. Thor will pay the price for his recklessness. Mjolnir belongs to Asgard. Odin was heavy and flat, and said to Suemo, Asgard will make some compensation accordingly. Saitama showed an expression of excitement at this time and shouted, "You are Odin? Fight with me, God should be very strong, right?" Suemo heard that a black line appeared in his forehead, and it really did. He was worried that Saitama would come directly. After all, Saitama's magic resistance really didn't know if there was any. Saifu, the four warriors of the fairy palace, wanted to scold him, but was stopped by Odin's hand. His eyes lightened, he took a step forward, with a kind smile on his face, and said, "I promise, and let this Mjolnir be my bet for victory." In Odin's view, Saitama is strong, but it is not enough. Even in his view, the weakness is obvious, and he is obviously a slant player. Suemo raised his brow and turned his head and said, "Saitama, you have to think clearly, this time the opponent may be someone you have never seen before." Odin's strength is very vague in the movie, and he belches before he can show it. Only from the fact that Thanos invaded the Nine Realms after his death was very powerful, he didn't dare to stretch out his hand when he was alive. Perhaps the last time Thanos came to Titan, it was to test Odin's current state. At the same time, Suemo can also feel that the Marvel universe he is in is probably going to develop into comics. In this way, Odin's strength will be stronger than the movie. He doesn't know much about comics, he only knows some concepts such as gods, and he has never seen specific strengths. It can be said that if Odin beat Saitama to the ground with a single move, Suemo would be palpitated but would not yell, "This is impossible." Saitama has always shown various spikes in previous life comics, and even heard that one said that it was Super Saiyan 2's combat power, and some people said it was a rumor. There are so many different opinions, which is confusing. Advertisement Suemo couldn't help worrying. As Saitama takes more shots, the more people should see that his strength is the ultimate strength. If Odin starts from magic, does Saitama have this defense? If Saitama's opponent is mysterious, it is the motivation of thinking, and the others almost destroy the shock wave. This setting is really not enough to look at in the Marvel universe, which can be full of superpower, magic, technology and even rules. It has everything. Suemo also heard people say that the goddess of death is dead, and everyone in the universe can't die. It's just like a joke. Saitama threw the hammer to the ground, without looking back and taking a step forward, and said seriously, "Suemo, since you know me, don't stop me. My lifelong pursuit is a passionate battle." Suemo can even feel that Saitama's body and mind are beginning to tremble. This is a longing, an ultimate pursuit. Well, then, Odin, if you win, take the hammer, and if you lose, you can exchange it with the one in the Asgard treasury I designated. Suemo saw that the matter was over and didn't stop him. Saitama was clearly aware of it. After turning the front of the conversation, he added to Odin, "How is it? I will witness your battle personally." When Odin heard this, his eyes flashed and he smiled, "Of course it can, including everyone present can witness it together." Coulson was crying, "What's the matter? Still fight? Nick Fury, who was opposite the communicator in his ear, yelled for him to maintain normal communication. Coulson was crying, "What's the matter? Still fight?" Nick Fury, who was opposite the communicator in his ear, yelled for him to maintain normal communication. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to be able to peek into the power known as the gods. However, Nick Fury's plan directly fell through. Odin raised his hand, and the huge rainbow beam of light from the sky enveloped the audience, and everyone disappeared directly in place with a boom. Only a circle of mysterious, complicated, and obscure patterns is left, perhaps as a symbol. "Sir, the satellite didn't find Collison's mark. I'm afraid it's not on the Earth. Maybe it's blocked." On the aerospace carrier, Commander Hill reported. "Boom. This place is completely sealed off, and no person or department is allowed to approach, especially the military." Nick Fury slapped the table angrily, so that the opportunity to study the unknown power slipped away, but Coulson could only be able to shoot it. Unknown planet, looking around, the barren land, lifeless, and the towering cloud-like peaks are amazing. Is this a planet outside the solar system? As an astronomer, Jane covered her mouth in shock, and what she had stepped on was some crimson rock formations she had never seen before. Advertisement. Coulson swallowed, looked around, and took out a small instrument to play around. The tone of the whole planet looks very depressing, which makes people feel a little uncomfortable. Suemo casually used an illusion technique to interfere with the vision of others, twisting his hand into the air, a pale white gap appeared, and then he closed it. The Rainbow Bridge can only transmit anywhere within the 9 realms. This planet does not seem to be one of the 9 kingdoms. Suemo touched his chin and thought deeply. It seems that he is still within the teleportation range of any gate. The 9 kingdoms that I want to come to are actually not very far from the solar system. Zero looking up at Saitama and Odin, who are not far away, he stared at him. No one knows the power of Odin. Suemo can only use Odin to see the power of the gods behind Heavenly Father. Heavenly Father, Celestial Group, Creation God. It should be easy for these powerhouses to destroy the sky and destroy the earth. With one finger, the universe restarts? This is so beautiful. Saitama looked up at the outer star river. The beautiful star ring made him sigh. Then he looked directly at the one-eyed old man. The faint aura on his body made him feel a little uncomfortable, awkward, and it was a sense of oppression. Once in a dream fight with the underworld king, I felt the whole body including the nerves being compressed. Odin, you are really powerful. I have never experienced such intuition. Saitama's eyes were burning with flames, his hands clenched his fists, and he shouted forward, "But this is the battle I want. Come on, God!" Seeing this, Odin throbbed in his heart, and secretly said, "This is the heart of a young boy, and I haven't encountered it in a long time." Majestic and solemnly said, "Come on, boy." As soon as the voice fell, the surface under Saitama's feet cracked into large pits, dense cracks opened, and layers of sonic clouds burst out. "Call out!" A red-gloved fist appeared in front of Odin in an instant, and the majestic fist fisted over Odin's old cheek. Chapter 129. If you change the eyes of ordinary people, there is a huge red fist full of sight, like a dead word rushing toward your face, and you feel like an ant to be slaughtered. But the target of Saitama's attack is a god, not a false god like Thor, but a real god. I saw Odin lift up the front end of the scepter like lightning and touch it with the coming fist. The fist and the scepter collided in mid-air, and time seemed to stagnate. In the next second, the power of the sky and the earth was centered on this, and a strong shock wave swept in all directions. Boom! The shock wave suddenly expanded, setting off a wave of energy and scouring everywhere. The crimson rock layer screamed, and the cobweb-like cracks bloomed before and after. A dull roar sounded in the clouds, and the earth shook like a beast, and Jane and Collison sat on the ground with a sway. 533. A small hole suddenly sank under Odin's feet, and the two of them seemed to be stuck, and then Saitama flew out like an arrow from the string. The small hills are as fragile as tofu and are constantly being smashed through. The sound of boom 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 can be heard until it hits a majestic Yamanaka. This is the god? Ordinary boxing is no longer enough. Saitama shoved away the heavy rubble on his body, and the white cloak had already been torn to shreds. The clothes on his body were not even strips of cloth, so they could only cover it up a little to avoid being indecent. He rubbed his fist, and the red mark on it made Saitama grateful and exclaimed, "Yes, this is a battle of flesh and blood. How long?" He has never felt any pain since he became bald, but a powerful counter-shock force penetrated into his fist just a moment ago, blasting him away. Odin came to Saitama with a flicker, staring directly at him, and muttered, "Formidable power, is there a god of ultimate power in this human body? Since it is a battle, of course there is a relationship." The scepter slammed to the ground, and the rock layer under his feet swelled like a wave, forming a layer of waves toward Saitama. "Wow! Seriously, lift the table." Saitama stepped back, bent over, and slammed his hands into the surface. The hard rock formation was unbearable and easy to penetrate, and then a continuous layer of rock was directly lifted up in the bewilderment of others. Standing upright in front of him like a crimson wall rising from the ground. Rumble. Advertisement. The rock waves rolled and hit the wall fiercely, and all of them broke apart at the moment of the collision. For a time, smoke and dust were everywhere, flying sand and rocks. A vague figure quickly approached in the splashing torrential rain. Saitama's mouth opened wide, and his face was full of smiles. He made a fist with his right hand, slammed a punch at Odin, who was still not far away, and shouted, "Must kill series." Serious punch, boom. The sonic boom kept blasting in Odin's ears, and Odin suddenly chilled all over his body, staring at him with a single eye, and the scepter in his right hand transformed directly into a golden war spear. Then he stabs forward suddenly. The golden light is so great, the power of Odin burst out and the shock wave brought by his fist directly collides with each other. The surging force tore the air, bursting in layers, and the heaven and the earth seemed to be overshadowed. If viewed from the surface of the planet, the entire cloud layer floating in the high altitude is directly blown away by strong air currents. Bang! The roar resounding between heaven and earth has deafened everyone. They can only hide in the distance numbly and wait for the result. The surface of the battlefield has collapsed, stretching for hundreds of meters, and black cracks about 10 meters wide have appeared, with 2 long gullies on either side of the end. The surface of the battlefield has collapsed, stretching for hundreds of meters, and black cracks about 10 meters wide have appeared, with 2 long gullies on either side of the end. It's a terrifying power. I have never encountered such a creature. Odin's feet sank to the surface. The golden armor on his body was stained with dust and dim, and the golden helmet on his head was crushed into slag directly in the collision. The whole person looked a little embarrassed. Odin looked solemnly at Saitama, who was already fully fruited but unharmed. The eternal spear in his hand whispered faintly, and it was obvious that he was far inferior in terms of pure strength. "Drink!" he shouted. His whole body seemed to be shrouded in golden light, suffocating like falling into an ice cave, chilling. The power of Odin is applied to the whole body to temporarily increase various physical attributes, and magical energy is also attached to it. The figure suddenly disappeared, leaving a bottomless ring pit in front of Saitama. When the fist protruded, the space began to twist and deform, making a cracking sound like glass. "Come just right." Advertisement. When Saitama saw this, he didn't panic, and threw his fists out, like a violent storm, and a huge impact erupted at one point. "Seriously, fight!" In the next moment, the space was like a stone thrown on the surface of a calm lake, and ripples appeared. With 2 punches as the center, the space is broken on one side, and the atmosphere is broken on the other. The distinct forces have not yet touched, and only a few minutes apart, the forces have already collided together. In the sluggishness of everyone, the planet seemed to have been severely damaged, and it began to break apart, and the impact ring visible to the naked eye gradually collapsed from the center of the 2 and spread in all directions. Boom! Run! The 4 warriors hugged Thor and Jane, and Collison hurriedly fled behind. Heimdall! A rainbow bridge directly descended to envelop them, and then turned directly to the other end. "My probe!" Collison cried sadly, only seeing the small probe sway from his hand and fall into the bottomless crack. "Teacher!" Jiluosi gritted her teeth and flew up to the sky to watch from a distance. The strong air pressure made her retreat again and again. Standing in the sky, Sumo's eyes flashed, and he said softly, "This is even more spectacular than playing Thanos before." That time, the desert geographical environment was directly turned into flowing soil. The rubble that collapsed was completely torn into atoms by unparalleled force at the same time. 3.1 The collapse is still going on, and everyone doesn't know how long it has passed. They just feel that the ground behind them is sinking, and their hearts are completely at a loss. No matter what Odin, how could even a human being make such a big movement? When the dust settled, everyone lay tired on the ground. Looking back, their pupils suddenly shrank into pinholes. Looking around, it is all empty, and you can directly see the starry sky on the other side of the planet, and the ground has disappeared. Jalasi scanned the garbled codes from time to time, and the CPU went into failure directly, and the power directly exceeded the detection range. She was stunned, and said in horror, "The planet is shredded. Judging from the extraterrestrial universe, this planet is like a red apple that was dug in half by a knife, forming a crescent, and the other half disappeared completely." Chapter 130. It hasn't been 3 minutes since the start of the battle, and the two sides have only had 3 moves, but it was just such a planet that was forcibly beaten into a crescent. The Immortal Palace and Jane were shocked, especially Collison, who didn't know how to return to life. "Is it difficult to go back and say to Nick Fury like this, 'Chief, they have turned the planet into a crescent'?" Saying this without camera, promises to usher in the roar of Nick Fury. "Well, this look is too unexpected for me." Su Mo thought deeply, feeling a sense of urgency. It seems that the pace is still not fast enough. In the center of Crescent, there were 2 people facing each other. Odin's right hand trembled uncontrollably, and the severe pain made him sweat. Yu Guang glanced at the grey spear at his feet, emitting extreme defensive magic at the moment of the impact to resist. Now the Eternal Spear is directly destroyed and needs to be returned to Asgard for cultivation. But Saitama's forehead blue veins burst out, and his hands were swollen like a big bowl, red. The red gloves above were crushed into pieces in the first time during the collision. "It hurts." Saitama growled in pain and joy, but he couldn't control his face with a crazy laugh. "It's 13 this feeling, it's so refreshing, it's a passionate battle. Come on again, I will continue to fight." Saitama walked forward with her feet, faster and faster until she ran and turned into an afterimage, and the sonic boom was left behind. This kid, his physical strength is really terrifying. Upon seeing this, Odin couldn't help smiling bitterly, that is, using Odin's power to add the physical attributes of the wall. There is still a gap between the two. His defensive power is not as strong as Saitama, but he is not only this strength, wearing it will be a power that can fight the gods. Destroyer. Odin exploded with an astonishing aura from his body, and a golden light gushed out into the galaxy in a columnar shape. In the void, at the end of the golden light, a huge silver-white armor slowly emerged. The SHIELD agent on the earth looked dumbfounded at the metal fragments in his hands, and disappeared out of thin air. The destroyer's armor has already been restored at this moment, and I feel Odin's divine power coming across time and space. I saw the destroyer armor dumped on Odin like a stream of water, rearranged and deformed to adapt to Odin, and the silver-white fluid spread. Immediately after solidification, it turned into an armor of the same height as Odin. The head was no longer flat, but the eyes were exposed, exuding a cold golden light. Advertisement putting on the destroyer, Odin changed his embarrassed posture and stood up like a towering mountain, exuding a sense of oppression, and the surrounding air was suffocated and rolled by the suffocating divine power. The creation of the destroyer came from a turmoil, and the celestial god group experimented on the earth and felt that it was a little undesirable to destroy the earth. At that time, Immortal Palace King Odin had been crowned the Lord of the 9 realms, and for the sake of prestige and other factors, he resolutely created the destroyer, and put it on to challenge the celestial team. Then, was instantly killed. To be reasonable, Odin has reached his personal peak level in this suit. He believes that if it is a 1-to-1 fight, the celestial team may not be impossible to fight. Now, in order to get back the hammer of Asgard, the treasure of Thor, he had to take out this big killer. At the same time, he also had doubts about Sumo's words, and exchanged Thor's hammer for an item in the treasure house. As we all know, the most valuable item in the treasure house is the icebox. The chill released can instantly freeze a planet. But he doesn't think it's that simple. Is it possible that Sumo knows the existence of infinite gloves? If so, you can't lose even more. The 9 realms must remain stable. Everything happened so quickly. Before Saitama arrived, Odin wore the destroyer armor, and the silver gleam was dazzling. Everything happened so quickly. Before Saitama arrived, Odin wore the destroyer armor, and the silver gleam was dazzling. Saitama bullied himself, ignoring that Odin had changed a lot, and there was only one thought in his mind. Fighting. Bloody battle. The battle until the end of life. Saitama kept dancing with both fists into afterimages. Ernest Odin used it again, but what was completely different from before was that Odin's speed was the same as his. Bang! Bang! Snapped! Bang! Fists and fists collided, rivaling each other, and thunder blasted again and again, and the Earth's surface continued to collapse, and the spilled shock waves bombarded the rock formations. come again, not enough." Saitama yelled frantically, his fists bursting with blood, without fear. In the blink of an eye, hundreds of serious punches were already hit, but Odin received them. At the same time, they would not directly break the stars as before, but directly offset them. Odin kept receiving heavy blows with both fists, and said calmly and steadily, "Boy, fighting is not just about brute force." After a short fight, he could see that the bald-headed man was completely relying on instinct to throw his punches, and he didn't have much skill. Advertisement in addition, he doesn't use energy at all. No wonder he can't use thunder with Thor's hammer. "I'll teach you combat other than brute force." As soon as the voice fell, invisible fluctuations erupted from the body and swept across Saitama, surging mysterious energy. The space became extremely sticky, and Saitama's figure became a little sluggish, and a few fists slammed directly on him. Cough. Saitama's throat was sweet, and he spit out a touch of blood, and his body flew upside down like a cannonball and smashed through the planet directly to the surface and blasted into Yamanaka. "What is this?" Saitama just got up, the bones all over his body began to creak, and the boundless heaviness was pressing on him as if the sky was falling. Clatter. Odin walked slowly, staring at Saitama, and said in surprise, "This is gravity. I put more than 1,000 times of gravity on you, 943, and you haven't fainted yet. In addition to the ultimate power, you also have the physique of the gods that ordinary creatures simply cannot possess. Saitama, you are really strong." Odin still doesn't know what to say. In fact, he has released various magic, gravity, spirit, etc. from the beginning of the battle. But in front of Ishin's passionate Saitama, the mental storm that once caused him headaches has become a trifling matter. 100 times the gravity can't make Saitama stagger, and Odin behind the gravity can't use it. The magic boosted by the destroyer's armor suppressed Saitama at this moment. Gravity? Gravity? I don't know all this, I only know. Saitama stood up at once, and snarled hysterically at Odin like an unyielding pillar, "I must defeat you." "Sure. A punch with all your strength." Odin's eyes flashed with astonishment, his arms crossed like lightning, and golden light shone like the sun on the stars. Heimdall too, who was far away in Asgard, said nothing to open the rainbow bridge and directly transferred all the mortals on the planet. In the next instant, the crescent moon-like planet directly shattered, and an endless shockwave erupted at this moment, instantly destroying the rubble. The red crescent in a pitch-black universe seems to have been erased by a program, and it doesn't exist anymore. Chapter 131. Ignore the people in the two pits in the picture. Asgard Rainbow Bridge, with a boom, Jane, Collison, the four warriors of the fairy palace, and Giluas all fell on the bridge of the color Madara Lan. They unanimously showed the expressions of the rest of their lives, and their hearts were even more numb, and their eyes were dumbfounded from beginning to end. "Hey? This is it." Thor and Sif's arms began to wake up slowly, and Mannase's brain was opened when he opened his eyes, and the thick armor was uncomfortable. Jane snatched it over and talked caringly. The other warriors also gathered around, and Thor finally figured out the current situation after talking about it. What? The battle between Saitama and his father Odin blasted the planet alive? Thinking of this, Thor couldn't help but shiver, before hammering this dead bald man. Are Midgard not just ordinary people? How can it be comparable to a god? A dazzling light suddenly shone in a dim universe space, and the moon directly collapsed into dust, and a golden meteor shot out from it, followed by another blood-red streamer. This kid hasn't reached the limit. Odin flew out, squinting his eyes, and mysterious waves exuded all over his body. The universe space along the way began to twist, and ripples appeared in the calm star sea. At this time, Saitama was exuding a horrified aura, the nearby meteorites were violently collapsed, his eyes were red, and his brain was full of fist-to-flesh fighting. Saitama caught up with Odin faster than lightning, and before he could throw his fist, the surrounding space became heavy again. This time it wasn't the body that felt gravity, but a strong pulling force trying to drag and fall into the orbit of the planet aside. No air, but no suffocation, Saitama struggled to break free of traction and threw a fist towards Odin in the distance. There is no sound-conducting medium in the vacuum, and the invisible fluctuations still attack Odin. Odin raised his hand with one hand, and blasted a golden, majestic smashing beam of light to greet him. The dazzling white light tore the universe void, and Heimdall's eyes could not see clearly. The entire area became a chaos, turned into a dark vacuum Uzumaki, darker than the universe. Odin stood on the edge of Uzumaki, his eyes flickering, and the next moment, his right hand moved forward, almost at the same time Saitama's fist hit. The ripples spread out in all directions, wherever they went, they were crushed. Saitama's full punch is no longer a single punch, but an explosion like Kaioken. Advertisement. His eyes were red with blood, the pupils in them had disappeared, and the veins on Saitama's body burst out, and the blood vessels bulged involuntarily. Both fists were soaked in blood, and Saitama kept throwing his fists out like a stormy offensive. Suemo, who made the vacuum survival and regeneration skills brought about by the vaccine man's strong adaptation to the environment, was stunned that the current Saitama could actually survive in a vacuum. You know that Saitama pinched his nose when he pushed back from the moon to the earth in the comics, which shows that he still needs oxygen. And if you can fly, you don't need to kick at all. Suemo is standing on the ground like a vacuum. And Saitama stood firm in the battle with Odin. Is there such a in the comics? Suemo couldn't help but wonder. The original author one hadn't finished drawing, and Saitama now showed completely different things. The battle continued. While getting closer and closer to another planet, Odin released endless magic. Flames, thunder, waves, gravity, magnetism, and even mental attacks were broken by Saitama. At the same time, Odin felt more and more that Saitama's strength began to increase indefinitely, and his ease from the beginning has become a little struggling now. He can't let Saitama continue to fight like this. The stronger the physique he fights, he will eventually lose. It's time to tell the winner. It's time to tell the winner. Odin stubbornly grabbed Saitama's fist, and suddenly turned around and flicked to the side of the planet. A magical pattern burst out as soon as he let go. Immediately afterwards, a beam of light from the sky burst out of the pattern and slammed straight against Saitama into the grey planet. Rumble. A circular stone pit that can be seen from outside the planet was directly blown out, dense cracks spread out from it, and Saitama was lying in the center pit. At the same time, a beam of light pierced the surface like a sharp sword, and the violent energy kept venting below Saitama. The dazzling flow of energy roared down like a sea, and the previously intact planet began to shake and then collapse. Odin stepped on the void. Behind him was filled with mysterious runes densely covering the sky. This is rune magic, from the root of the world tree. Once he hangs upside down on the world tree, gaining a trace of the power of the gods of the gods. The rune magic was full of obscure aura, poured into the golden beam of light and became extremely terrifying, and the entire galaxy began to turbulent. Give me. Die. Open. With every cell in his body washed away, Saitama tremblingly climbed up, standing between heaven and earth like a mountain that never fell. Advertisement. The corners of his mouth kept spilling blood, and the veins all over his body burst out one after another. It was like a bloody Shura after a while. Saitama didn't feel any pain, he just wanted to fight to the end. The opponent's strength far surpassed him. Winning was the first time he wanted so much after he became bald. Saitama raised his right fist, his eyes were soaked with blood, and he roared into the sky. Must kill. One punch. The universe was turbulent, the stars shifted, and the star sea set off layers of waves to sway the various galaxies, and the boundless energy suddenly exploded. The territories of Xia, Skuru, and the Kree Empire all began to appear at the same time, and all the planets were affected by energy and appeared and destroyed to varying degrees. On the Earth, the Sorcerer Supreme Ancient One, wearing a white shirt in Kamatai beside Mount Everest, opened his eyes and waved his hands. The unknown crimson magic swayed between the fingers, and a flash appeared on the top of Mount Everest. Stephen Strange just pushed the door and entered, but found that there was no one in the room, and then Kamatai appeared a powerful wave of magic. Looking at the upcoming energy tide, the eyes of Agamotto on Ancient One's neck faintly glowed with green light. Ancient One frowned tightly, and while thinking about it, the three major temples on the earth and Kamatai were horns with each other, bursting out with dazzling rays of light. Each is, Nyawangzhao, central energy and then connected and woven into an energy shield that wraps the planet. Then the energy storm pounced on the protective cover, rippling waves, and then gradually calmed down. What kind of power is this? Ancient One, who has been fighting against monsters in different spaces all the year round, exclaimed. Then she returned to Kamatai and planned to use the eyes of Agamotto to see what happened. In the battlefield, the planet once again collapsed into scum. Saitama floated in the universe covered in wounds, and a blood stain overflowed from the corner of Odin's mouth not far away. Suemo flickered, lifting up a limp Saitama, and sighed secretly, what a terrible god. Saitama clasped her back and closed her eyes, with blood and tears flowing at the corners of her eyes, but her mouth was curved. Is this failure? Next time, I will definitely win. Suemo smiled when he saw this. Well, definitely. Chapter 132. Asgard Rainbow Bridge Whoosh. Two figures appeared on the bridge respectively, everyone was shocked, and Thor swallowed and looked at Saitama on Suemo's body. Give you the hammer. Suemo asked Jalasi to come over and threw the hammer over. After Thor caught it, he planned to turn around and leave. Please wait. Odin stopped and turned to Thor and said, Thor, are you awake now? If you are awake, come over and let the world know your recklessness. The implication was to make Thor apologize to others, otherwise he would still not be Thor. Odin has his own plan. Knowing that his life is about to end, he definitely hopes that the future of the gods will not be able to stop it, and the Asgardians can have a good place to go. Saitama's strength let him know that Midgard might be a good place in the future, and he might also be able to leave a good impression when he can have a good relationship. Thor hesitated, but under Odin's stare, he had to bite the bullet and apologize to Suemo and others. Suemo narrowed his eyes and said secretly, it really is a scheming, this bending is equivalent to turning a page, maybe the next time Thor comes to the earth to meet, he will have to nod his head to greet him. But it doesn't matter to Suemo, this is a trivial matter, not to mention that Saitama likes to fight to get to the source. Of course Thor's arrogance is also the cause of the detonation. Odin's eyes flickered, and then he said, I sincerely invite a few people to visit Asgard next time. There are all the specialties of Jaja 560. In fact, Odin does not intend to stop at nodding his head, but also hopes to reach an alliance like this. Now the talk is really a bit embarrassing, and there are still beatings in the last moment. If he can talk for a long time in the future, he should be able to talk about his eloquence for many years. It is good. Suemo looked at Odin with deep meaning, and agreed, and with a wave of his hand, a pink door appeared in the crowd's bewilderment. With a crunch and the doorknob twisted, Suemo walked the door frame with Jalasi carrying Saitama on his back. Despair. The moment the door closed, the space returned to its original state, and it never seemed to appear. This is spatial teleportation. Heimdall said with a flash of excitement, surprised. Very peculiar transmission method, which looks a bit similar to the Stargate of the Shia Empire, but it is definitely more convenient than it. Odin pondered for a moment, then turned to look at Jane and Collison behind him. Their majestic posture made them Alexandria in cold sweat. Jane, oh, it seems Thor's father would oppose this marriage. Coulson, oh, I'm still here, what should I do? Earth, suburbs of Manhattan advertisement. The three of Suemo returned to Villa number 2. Jin Wian was still working at the company, so there was no one here. However, Alice directly projected it, looking at Saitama lying on the sofa biff, and shouting in surprise, someone beat him. Odin. Suemo nodded, sitting on the sofa, and said depressed, the gods in this world are really powerful, and the bursting stars are even more clingy. It feels like Odin hasn't done his best yet. In this case, is he going to draw some cartoons about gods and develop them in an all-round way? The injury on the teacher looks very serious, but the body is recovering rapidly, but the consciousness fell into a deep sleep. Jalasi said while fiddled with Saitama, scanning her eyes and sliding a large amount of data streams, and her hands became highly sophisticated medical equipment. Consciousness? Is it only effective now because of the previous mental shock? That's not right, Odin can't be okay if this happens. Suemo whispered softly, thinking constantly flashing through his mind, suddenly wondering if Saitama is in the next stage of entry. According to the One Punch World concept, Saitama's limiter for ordinary people has been broken, forming a new limiter. Then, inspired by the battle with Odin, is it possible to break the limiter again? Thinking of this, Suemo shook his head. He couldn't read it straightly. The mystery of Marvel Universe is too high. Everything is possible. Even the captain of Hydra is Steve. Even the captain of Hydra is Steve. A week later, after washing, Jin Wian went to the cat and glanced at Saitama's bedroom, looking at Saitama who was sleeping, and couldn't help being speechless. Are you okay after sleeping for so long? Food and water didn't even come in, and Saitama didn't seem to change at all. In the living room, Suemo is watching TV, and the report above is a live broadcast of Congress. I declare that the proposal for the mutant registration bill will not be passed due to overwhelming opposition. A fat speaker slammed his voice on the stage with a small hammer. A week ago, after the mutants were exposed by the experiment, America began to shirk responsibility from beginning to end. After all, this is the 21st century of civilization, and such inhumane experiments cannot be put on the bright side. There is no one in secret, and it will never be allowed once on the stage. Even if you say you are a terrorist organization, it can happen to America, which claims to be the most advanced. It can be said to be a worldwide uproar, and all official and non-governmental organizations around the world have condemned it. The first to bear the brunt was the military's Ministry of National Defense. Advertisement. But the biggest loser is the president, who sits in the White House with a handy pick. Even if the relationship is first dismissed, the polls that week showed that support has fallen to 20%. Want to be re-elected? Go dreaming. At the same time, many members of the Congress saw the trend and started to promote the fair status of mutants. Not to mention that at this moment, these congressmen became popular, and Charles was even more happily meeting with these congressmen. The young X-Men formed a hero team to fight criminals from time to time, save people from fire and water from time to time, and even do it even to help the road, so angry that the police, firefighters and volunteers ran to complain. But they were shocked to find that no relevant department could complain. There was only the Mutant Affairs Department, but the director was a mutant. Because the Hero Squad is often active on the street, close to the people and grounded, plus the Hero Academy comics promoted by fans, under the multi-channel publicity. More and more people realize that the original mutants are actually not terrible, and the abilities of most mutants are just like chicken ribs. For example, a child who can switch channels with the blink of an eye has now been taken home by his parents as a normal person. Such examples began to increase. Many young people in the academy returned to a peaceful life, and they were also happy to do so. In contrast, Xavier Youth Academy has also been officially changed to Hero Academy, with general subjects and hero subjects built in. The Hero Division is the original X-Men squad, and the lack of people in the General Division makes Charles wrinkles in a hurry. Dudu. Su-mo, I just want to borrow you personally. When Su-mo went to the rooftop to start the lottery after watching TV, Charles called. People? How come you don't have enough staff? No, I just want to use Saitama's name, so that he can appear at the opening ceremony, so that more people can join in. Now there are too few capable mutants in the academy. After all, if you want to be a hero in the future, only 50% of the mutants will be excluded. Many potential mutants are well protected by their parents, so they don't want to join. Charles smiled bitterly. He used to be a scourge, but now he is a baby. Congratulations to host, well, Saitama won't be able to go this way. I recommend someone to go here to attract more young mutants to join. Oh? Who is it? Symbol of Peace. Chapter 133. The new week is a new cycle in the eyes of ordinary people, without any accidents, but in the eyes of Manmai, it is a day of choking hands. New Juvenile Jump, buy. The new issue of Soulmate Comics, buy it. New booklet of Crimson Eye, buy it. New booklet of The Black Bullet, buy. This week, Shinigami and Naruto have become separate serials. Can't I buy them, right? Crazy buying. The streets and alleys are full of juvenile carnivals. The media has also begun to pay attention to this phenomenon. The high quality of the comics released by the company and the popular hero Saitama have attracted batch after batch of consumers. Rachel is a new comic fan. Ever since she was rescued by the bald brother from the ugly monsters, she has plunged into this pit and can't get up for a lifetime. I learned about Saitama through comics and became a fan of My Hero Academia. Why? Because Rachel has another identity, that is, a mutant. She activated her mutant ability on the night she was rescued. Telepathy. She can read the target's thoughts, create illusions, plant her own thoughts in the target's mind, and attack the target to make the target dizzy. As a precocious Rachel, she has never dared to expose her identity as a mutant. He heard from others that her parents would directly abandon her once exposed. She was afraid of being thrown away, so she kept hiding it to this day. The streets were so noisy that Rachel, a petite girl, squeezed out of the crowd and returned home with a bag full of comic books. The male lead in the family went out to work, and only his mother looked after Rachel at home, and she couldn't help showing a shallow smile when she saw her cheerful look. Rachel put the comic books on the table, one after the other. It seemed that the Ghoul Jinmu little angel finally became a white Shura under the tyranny of the gecko, breaking his fingers, anti-killing the gecko. She was handsome. Shocked. Two new Shinigami, Byakuya Kukaki and Abarai Renji, appeared in the first issue of Shinigami. Naruto also rushed into the story of the country of Poland. It was a small twist. Rachel felt that the young lady named White in it was very kind. The beginning of One Piece is slightly humorous. Rachel feels that this little Mr. Fantastic is really rough. After being named the swordsman Zoro, he is actually a small boat. Advertisement in Fairy Tail, Lucy, Naz, and Hobby teamed up to complete a mission to infiltrate and destroy the book, but in the end it leads to a secret of the Dark Guild. Elisa, the strongest female wizard in the guild, also officially debuted. Terminator in Zion Mank has been removed from the shelves, replaced by Fate, and Rachel also saw the words marked with long comics and different series. After opening it curiously, the author said in the foreword, the comic magazine will only serialize the main body Fate/Stay Night, and other series will be sold as separate editions. Fate Night? Rachel's little head felt that the melon seeds were not enough, and then looked down. The cover of the prologue was a brave blonde girl with the Holy Grail war marked on it. It is a strange setting. Now Suemo has been called a ghost cartoonist by comic fans. Genius can't describe it at all. What kind of setting is easy to come by? Anyone who draws a pirate can make up devil fruit. This made many cartoonists sigh fiercely and retired sadly. The story begins with a high school student named Shiro Waimiya, whose life experience looks a little suspenseful. A big fire, a savior, and a partner in justice. A big fire, a savior, and a partner in justice. It is enough for fans to speculate, knowing that the beginning of every comic by Suemo is full of deep meaning. One day, Shiro Waimiya was a good old man helping people clean, and he was about to go home and found two mysterious men fighting on campus. The coyote Shiro, who was a half-hearted magician, felt a shocking aura against his face, and made a noise when he walked back, and was chased by a man with a gun in a panic. After being stabbed, the dead Imiya Shiro got up without incident after recalling the killing. Rachel looked a little confused. Isn't she dead? 2 lives? There is a close-up shot of a strange gem on the ground. Later when he returned home, Shiro Waimiya, who thought he had escaped, did not expect the gunman to catch up again, and the two fought against each other again. In the end, he was unsatisfactory and lost. When he was about to die, Shiro Waimiya's hand burst into a dazzling light, and the woman on the cover appeared. Turning around and proudly said, "I ask you, are you my master?" Advertisement. After the contract was completed, the blonde girl and the pikemen fought together. The weapon was an invisible sword, and after dodge the mortal spear of death, the pikemen left. In the end, Rachel also learned what the Holy Grail War is. The end of this episode ends with another magician, Rin Rin, who is a classmate of Shiro Waimiya. It looks quite interesting. After reading it, Rachel smiled with interest, and finally opened Woying with joy. This super favorite comic was tasted at the end. This comic was serialized late, but the plot was compact and quickly entered the admissions exam, and the enrollment that followed made Rachel really hooked. Rachel, who was still unconscious, turned to the end but saw the reality of the graduation ceremony of the Hero Academy starting tomorrow morning. Rachel knew where this position was. She wanted to go and was afraid that her parents would find out that at this time the mutant bill on TV was not passed, and she made up her mind. Rachel walked out and told her mother in the kitchen. At night, at a genomics laboratory under the Osborne Group, Max was just an ordinary grid line worker. During the day, he had a fight with his boss, but he didn't know because the grid energy supply he designed was used by the company. Now he was ordered to deal with the power failure in this place, and climbed up to repair the circuit with a strong sense of responsibility when the power was not cut off. The current double tube was plugged in, the current did not leak, and it was resolved safely. Max put down his vigilance and put the tube back to its original place. But the next moment, the high voltage current rubbed over the body, fell into the fish tank where the mutant electric eel was trembling, and turned into coke. A moment later, sitting on the sofa in the living room of the Manhattan suburb No. 2 villa was a burly man with 2 pinches of golden bangs that rose momentarily, and a burly man in a uniform of mixed red, white, and blue was watching TV leisurely. At this time, the TV news screen turned, and what happened on it made him frown. "Jinmu, I'll go out for a while." "Well, is this world going to be a hero again?" "Of course." With a confident smile on his face, the brawny man walked out. Chapter 134. Times Square, New York, is brightly lit, noisy day and night, like a city that never sleeps. As the central square of New York, people who have been to New York must come here. The crowded streets and the feasting shops make people drunk and dreamy. A man in a black hooded suit walked slowly towards this place. His appearance was no different from a normal person, mixed in the crowd. But if a child passed by and raised his head, he could see that the man's eyes were glowing with blue pupils, like glowing lights. He is Max, who was electrocuted into an electric eel tank a few minutes ago, and was fished out by the staff after becoming inhuman coke. Max was robbed of the power grid before his death, and he was not seen directly, nor did he get the attention he deserved after his death. Some leaders planned to study Max's body. After all, it was found that the mutant electric eels in the fish tank were all dead when they were fished out. However, Max woke up directly in the autopsy room. He felt more and more hungry at this time, and it was obvious that he came to the street. The Times Square scene from a distance is full of hot 7/9s and 7s energy in his eyes, and the electric current flowing in the wires everywhere exudes a fascinating fragrance. Max can't help drooling. Eating it is his only motivation. Slowly moving forward in the direction of the current concentration in the cable, the dazzling light attracted him to a corner of Times Square. Then Max knelt underground, smashed the pipe with his bare hands and grabbed the underground electric pipe greedily to absorb the electricity in it to replenish energy for himself. The passers-by around looked on. They couldn't see Max was absorbing energy, they just thought it was not stealing the tube. It wasn't until a patrol police arrived and found that Max's appearance was blue all over, and the underside of his body did not look like blood vessels, which was really scary. The police yelled for support at the communicator, and a group of policemen drove in a police car and rushed around Max, raising their pistols at the confused Max. The crowd onlookers was unclear, so they just stood nearby and watched. Mutant! The sheriff stepped forward and shouted loudly at Max. This appearance is no longer human. No, I don't know. Max panicked and wanted to tell the police about his difficulties, but these guns were directed at him, making him very nervous and unable to speak clearly. At this time, the media rushed to shoot it, and even Max's images were put on the big screen in Times Square. Max was noticed by everyone. Now I feel an inexplicable excitement. Max, who has never existed before, just feels that being noticed is so good. Hello, citizens of New York. At this time Peter Spider-Man arrived. Since the last time he went to follow the word training method, Peter has been practicing in retreat and cultivating immortals at night. However, he couldn't stand it for less than a week, and he felt that the world was still waiting for him and couldn't waste time. Spider-Man relied on his gentle tone and the male god in Max's heart, and the two gradually got closer and talked happily. But ignorant of the situation, the sniper acting arbitrarily released Max with a cold shot and angered him. Max, who felt that he was being deceived, roared in anger, "You lied to me." Advertisement. After finishing speaking, the electric current gushing out from both hands directly hit the Spider-Man, who was too late to react. Spider-Man, who was hit by a high-voltage electric current, flew upside down and hit a police car while sighing helplessly for his teammates. There was a strong sense of numbness in the fierce mouth. If it weren't for the strong material and strong insulating ability, it would cause a big wound to be scorched. Then what makes Spider-Man even more popular is that the electric current released by Max makes the left-hand spider silk ejector directly overloaded and scrapped. The crowd onlookers saw that the little spider had been beaten, and angrily scolded Max as if he had forgotten who he was facing. Max was jealous of everything about Spider-Man, and he kept muttering, "Destroy everything, destroy." Max has a very poor combat experience. While he was stunned, Spider-Man used his powerful inertia to fly Max into the big screen. But Max, who took this heavy blow, got up unharmed. His azure blue eyes had been replaced by abyss-like pupils. Max stared at Spider-Man deeply, and aside from anything else, he grabbed the surrounding cables and pressed it to the fierce mouth. The current that swallowed everything like a sea of smoke continuously rushed into his body. The lights in the entire area were extinguished one after another, and the city that never sleeps was shrouded in darkness. Max, who received such a huge current, only felt surging energy all over his body, and stretched out his hands. The blue-white current aperture suddenly burst out and spread out in all directions. Along the way, glass, walls, etc. were crushed by the crackling high-voltage current. Along the way, glass, walls, etc. were crushed by the crackling high-voltage current. The people below were dumbfounded, and then fled in horror. When Max saw this, he suddenly felt that such a scene made him extremely refreshed. He could vent his unsatisfactory career, the deception of the executives, and the jealousy of the male god. A steady stream of electric current is stored in every cell, and the strength and speed of the body are rising explosively. Just as his mind moved, he flew into the air, and the powerful force lost his mind and expanded his mind. Rumble. Even Spider-Man didn't care about him, and the electric shock wave blasted out and exploded in the crowd. He was intoxicated by crying for help. At this time, there was an extremely impactful sound of water flowing in his ears. As a wire worker, Max was also the initiator of Osborn's current grid energy plan. Of course you will know that the current will short-circuit when it hits the water, and the faint sense of crisis will react quickly with the strengthening of the body behind it, and it will be awkward. Flashed past the water cannon fired by Spider-Man with a fire hydrant. Spider-Man. Max narrowed his eyes, and the burst of electric current rushed towards Peter. The two began to fight, and Spider-Man lacked a spider silk launcher and was not as fast as it used to be between the buildings. Advertisement. As Max became more comfortable with his abilities, he had evolved to the point where his whole body was broken down into electrons and then recombined, and the water gun couldn't hit him. Boom! Spider-Man smashed into a building like a kite that dropped. Peter has no time to think about other ways to crack it. He was caught up by Max and fought fiercely. The stormy offensive, even without any fighting skills, made Peter miserable even with the strength of the electric current. It's over, Spider-Man. Max casually threw it away, and Peter fell from a height to the police car, suffering from severe pain and unable to recover. At this moment, I am the electric light man. The electric light people on the surrounding screens kept announcing his arrival, and a radio wave blasted out directly to a mother and daughter hiding behind the bunker. Mom! Rachel, who was originally to play, was held in her arms by her mother together, and yelled out of her voice. She kept arousing telepathy in her mind hoping to deflect the direction of the video game, but she was too young and just awakened. Diane Guangren only felt that his mind was stabbed with something, not very painful, but it also made him furious. He was so embarrassed that he didn't know what was going on, but he just had to destroy everything in front of him, and the palm of his hand directly increased the current output. The electric current suddenly rushed in and came to Rachel in the blink of an eye. Rachel's face was grey. The news host couldn't bear to look straight, and Peter Spider-Man hated his weakness once again. Nothing can be saved. At this moment, a loud and reassuring shout of 1.4 came from the distant sky. Texas smash, Texas smash. A violent wind pressure rolled the air, tearing and buzzing. An unparalleled air shock wave hit halfway in an instant and collided with the electric wave, and then collapsed one after another. Boom! Flying sand and rocks, dusty. After the dust settled, the brawny man in the uniform with two upward golden bangs walked out of the dust. He turned to face Rachel, mother and daughter behind him, with a confident smile on their faces, and said, "It's okay. Why do you want to ask?" "Because I'm here." Rachel opened her mouth wide, staring at the strong man dully, but got stuck in her throat while trying to shout something. The first reaction was the news host. As a young man, his eyes widened and he was surprised and madly shouting in the live broadcast room, This is symbol of peace. Olmert. Chapter 135. It's okay already, I have to ask why. Because I'm here. With this mantra, when disaster strikes, strong and burly men always have a confident smile on their faces. Olmert. As the news anchor shouted loudly, all the teenagers in front of the TV were shocked and jumped up. At the same time, they shouted in unison under the surprise of their parents, Olmert. The debut of Ermat enjoys an unprecedented sensation, and the internet spreads with a viral attack. S.H.I.E.L.D. is the first time to take out the Woying comics and delve into it carefully. When Saitama appeared, the proportion of teenagers who read manga was less than 20%, especially when they were still in ruins. So only a few comic fans called out Saitama's name, but now it's completely different. Manga branches have opened in capitals of various countries, and the shock of Saitama's debut has caused nearly 80% of American teenagers to fall into the comic pit. Marvel comics have become a trend for a while, young people's fashion. If someone asks what it is, 100% will be despised by the savages who do not know which ravine comes from. Many 16 parents or older people will know about Marvel. Of course, apart from the necessary time, they have no time to read comics. Most of the teenagers in front of the TV and on the scene can shout out Ermat. You don't need to know Ichigo, you don't know Naruto, but you will definitely know Ermat. According to the latest Juvenile Jump survey, Saitama ranks first in popularity, and Ermat is ranked second. Why? It is because of the timing and image of his appearance. At the time point, the Hero Academia comics are being released during the time when the mutants suffer. The relationship between heroes and mutants is widely discussed by the world. In congressional debates alone, the number of congressmen who supported the fair status of mutants began to increase, and every one of them was arguing and moving out of this comic every time. In image, the appearance of the characters is a typical American image of a brawny man, and the uniforms on his body are also the colors of the American impression of red, white and blue. Captain Steve is also in this color combination. From the outside, the Americans have a kind of natural intimacy, and the heroic highlight in the end is the traditional heroism of rules and regulations. Although the comics have not yet reached the peak of the battle between Almut and AFO, his popularity is not yet the most explosive period. But it doesn't matter, as long as people know him. Ermat, a symbol of peace, appears in front of everyone at this moment. Advertisement. His appearance will completely set off a frenzy. The young man who fled in a panic looked at the strong man who appeared in the field. At this time, he felt very safe. It was the first time I saw him, but it was so inexplicable. This is the unique charm of Ermat, as long as someone sees his smile, they will feel relieved. It's all right now, isn't it? Olmert! 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 They stopped one after another and cheered for the hero they longed for most not far away. If the hero of Collison's generation is Captain Steve, then Ermat will be the hero of this generation and the future of the new era. As long as Almut is uprightly defeating criminals, then he is qualified to challenge the righteous God who has been shaped by American officials for 70 years. Because in the eyes of the people of the new era, Ermat is undoubtedly better than the old antique Tenton lost his shield. Because in the eyes of the people of the new era, Ermat is undoubtedly better than the old antique Tenton lost his shield. The media hurriedly put Ermat's image on the screen, and the unanimous shouts made people think that this was a celebrity concert. Upon seeing this, Max Electric, who had captured the focus, his face began to become hideous, and the unknown person from nowhere caused him to lose focus. He used to have a very small sense of existence, but now he desperately needs the attention of the world. Whether it is good or bad, as long as he is noticed, the emptiness in his heart will be filled. What is Ermat? Never heard of it. Max is an old man in his old age. He usually listens to the news to learn about current affairs. If Saitama is here, he will run away without saying a word. No way, he also watched the live broadcast at the time, and his small body couldn't help being beaten. And Ermat appeared as a character in the comics, he had never understood it at all. It should be said that most middle-aged and elderly people are like this. I've heard of Marvel, but how can it be possible to buy a book after publishing comics, and I'm full? Who are you? Spider-Man's friend? Or a superhero? The electric light man who landed on the ground stared at Ermat with deep eyes like ink, and questioned heavily. Advertisement. Since he had the courage to appear in front of him, he could just kill 100 people and let the world know how powerful he was. Me? Ormut, you may not have heard of it, but... After making Rachel and her daughter run away, Olmert turned to look directly at the electric man, grinning at the corners of his mouth, and blinding his eyes under the thick golden eyebrows. He took a step forward slowly, and said deeply, "As long as I am here, you won't hurt anyone. I am a hero." Dian Guangman was furious when he heard the words. Such words humiliating his self-esteem made his fragile heart full of hatred. Ermat has replaced Spider-Man's kill list. The whole body was emitting blue light, and the blood vessels were full of electric currents. He roared loudly, "Hero? I want to kill all of you hypocrites." In his opinion, the heroes are all unworthy of their names. Where were the heroes when his plan was snatched by the senior management? Where was the hero when he fell into the fish tank and almost turned into coke? What's the use of a hero who didn't have 873 to save him? The extremely distorted values made the electro-optical man furious, and his hands blasted a current shock wave. The blue and purple current crackled and spewed into an energy column, and the extremely high-voltage energy poured out to Ermat. Wherever he went, there was chemical coke, and even the surface was electrocuted by a black coke channel. It's useless to say more, your life needs to be corrected. Olmert stepped into a lunge, his body slightly lowered, his surging power concentrated on his right fist, and he slammed out suddenly. Detroit smash, Detroit smash! The air currents were instantly brought up by the fist to form a white cyclone, hitting the current shock wave at hand. Bang! The ground was thundered, and the stone broke the sky. The dull sound exploded at this moment, a violent gust of wind dissipated the dust everywhere, and the majestic air shock wave directly destroyed the rotten crash current shock wave. Attacking the electric light man like a broken bamboo, between his jaws, the violent air pressure rushed through his body, slapped all the external tendons with heavy gravity. Ordinary people have long been blown out by this punch, and the electro-optical people who have been strengthened by the electric current can't bear it and quickly decompose them into electrons. Like a crash, it is generally turned into electrons permeating the air, flew into a ray of blue light and flew towards Urmat. Chapter 136. Director, this is all the information currently compiled by Olmert. Commander Hill took the information file and handed it to Nick Fury. I have asked Collison to go to Times Square and try to get in touch with it. After Suemo and others left Asgard, Coulson was teleported back by Rainbow Bridge just like Jane. After Nick Fury took it, frowning and thinking, he said, "Is there only this point? The authenticity is totally unacceptable. The information comes from comics, and it is also drawn by Suemo himself. If it is changed, S.H.I.E.L.D's information must be wrong." Nick Fury firmly believes that these comics are only one of the same. The abilities may be the same, but many of them are definitely different. For example, this Urmet turned into a weak and sick seed. How can this be? Will Suemo expose such a simple weakness? Nick Fury looked at the display and sighed solemnly. If Urmat is a hero with a sense of justice as described in the comics, we can also do our best to fight for it. The conversation turned around, but I don't think it's that simple. After all, the current hero's status is a bit swaying. Some people in Congress are forced to abandon the mutant registration bill and are now making small moves. I heard that they are starting to work on the superhero registration bill. Of course, in the current situation, no one will support such a bill, and they must be waiting for opportunities. Nick Fury did not try to dissuade him. There are advantages and disadvantages to such a bill, just as the Hero Academy and the Hero Association in comics are officialized. Of course he applauded. Maybe he can still be the leader. But the world has a different background. This world is still dominated by ordinary people. There is no weird person who destroys the city by Tenton, and there is no human being who walks on the floor with personality. When there are not enough foreign enemies, it is a civil unrest. Once on the table, the hero will definitely fight inwardly. Nick Fury shook his head secretly. It is too early to think about this. He has only savvy and capable agents under his hands, besides only the technical consultant Iron Man. Although Dr. Hulk Banner was almost killed by a punch, his strength is beyond doubt, and Natasha has been sent to communicate. In Times Square, New York, the electric lights flickered, and the electric lights turned into electrons to flee towards Urmat. This move can have great penetrability. High voltage current can burst in the body instantly, bombarding the internal organs. Olmert raised his brows and his face remained unchanged, making people unable to see through his thoughts. It was still a bit tricky for this elemental opponent. Advertisement, but he was not afraid. I saw him on one side of his footsteps like lightning, passing by the electric light. Since it turned into an electric light, he waited for the entity to appear. It is impossible to be in an electronic state all the time, otherwise it will eventually become an unconscious electron. The extremely rich combat experience told Urmet, as he expected. After the electric lights passed, they immediately gathered to form a human form, and pushed forward with his fast hands with his back facing Urmet, two lightning bolts like a whip. However, before swinging it out, Urmet swung a powerful straight fist into the air, a ring of air exploded, and the whole person flew out suddenly. New Hampshire smash, New Hampshire smash, with lightning speed, Urmat's body bends backwards and suddenly hits the electro-optical man behind him in the blink of an eye. The sudden acceleration of the extremely heavy weight, 225 kilograms, turned into a terrible force and all crushed the whole body of the electric light man. Bang! With a sound like a muffled thunder, Urmat smashed into the street on one side against the electric man, and dense cobwebs spread out, and no small pits suddenly appeared. Cough, 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 cough. The electro-optical man lay in the center of the pothole, coughing and vomiting a smear of blue-red blood, and his entire face became extremely hideous, making others tremble. Calm down, don't blame others, you have enough power to help others. Olmert jumped out of the pothole and advised Max, as long as you obey your heart, you can still become a hero. He saw that the human nature is not bad, and it may be worth saving. As the #1 hero in the comics world, Matt possesses unparalleled personal charm. His words are always self-reflection, and many criminals are affected by it and turn back. Then here is the Marvel Universe, it is possible to wait for the destruction of the world to appear. Here is the Marvel Universe where good babies turn bad. Countless good babies have always been blackened by factors like this, and there are only a handful of people who have lost their way. Obviously Max, who has always been an honest man, is now dissatisfied with the arrangements of fate, and Olmert's advice is not heard at all. It's not just that I'm a little bit stronger. I, Max, electro-optic, can fully deal with him and consume him alive. Advertisement. Max thought very confidently with the massive electric current in his body, and then rushed into the air, yelling at Matt, a hero is a ridiculous person. Hearing this, Matt squeezed his hands firmly, and looked at the electric light man floating in the air with a cold expression on his face. It seems that you can't look back, so go to the prison and reflect on it. As soon as the voice fell, Matt burst out like a cannonball, leaving a small pit in place, crossing his hands. This person is stupid, he jumped up and hit me, I can fly. Diane Guangren smiled disdainfully, and moved away in mid-air. Then in the next instant, a big hole was directly torn from the side of the waist by the terrifying force, and blood spewed out like spring water. Carolina smash, Carolina smash. In the instant that flashed by, made used a cross-cut to form an air-wave that made the careless Diane Guang people eat it. The whole person fell down like a bird with folded wings, and just about to reorganize it electronically, underneath it was Matt who had just fallen. Ended. Almit concentrated his power in the palm of his hand and spread it out to form a hand knife with a lightning stroke. Missouri smash. Missouri smashed, did it, hiss. The air was cut apart and hit the electric light man's hand directly. Boom. The electro-optical man's blood spurted out of his mouth, and the fierce mouth was cut open. The blood flow continued. It flew out and hit the fire hydrant. The burst of water caused him a second injury. Max, who was planning to escape electronically, was cold and unable to do so, so he could only lie on the ground weakly and fell into a severe coma. How so? This is his only thought. It was also the doubts of the people present, including S.H.I.E.L.D. After all, Diane Guangman was like Kamui at first, and Spider-Man was beaten and fled in panic. As soon as Olmert appeared on the stage, it felt as if it were very relaxed, as if I could be on me. Is it as simple and neat as they thought? Chapter 137. Is it really that simple? Of course not. Met squinted his eyes flickered, and secretly said, it's really a very hanging world. If this kind of self-current personality had been in the previous world, it would be able to stand out. The discharge capacity and maximum output of Shangming Electric are far inferior to him, and the control difficulty is also surprisingly low. In the previous battle, he relied on his rich combat experience and instinct to quickly attack. The lightning speed of the whole process made the electrons behind him have no time to display, and finally he made consecutive moves to defeat the enemy. The opponent just happened to be an ordinary person, without any skills and experience, he was a giant infant, simple and rude. But after a little training, it can be said that it is very tricky to fully develop the ability and strengthen the physique. If AFO has such a personality, he will definitely exert a more devastating force if he absorbs the electricity of a city. The electronic ability alone made his head hurt. Of course, his strength has not been fully utilized, and he will subconsciously keep his hands on those who are not sure to kill. In the eyes of others, Met was so violent as soon as he appeared on the stage, the electro-optical man, who was as fierce as a tiger, fell under his feet. Goal 333 Matt. Olmert. Olmert. The crowd of onlookers immediately gathered around with joy, applauding and cheering for the emergence of new heroes. They yearn for more and more heroes to be born, because in this way they will feel more and more secure. Can you get up? Olmert walked to a police car and reached out to Peter. Spider-Man cough, okay, I'm recovering quickly. This time, Peter was able to get up, and the spider's genes didn't have much power, but the life was as strong as Xiao Qiang. After Peter slipped down from the police car, he looked at Met's strong body and couldn't help but wonder, is your body okay? As a new hero-themed comic, Peter prefers the Hero Academia to One Punch, because this is the story of a young hero. The passion and hard work are more in line with his concept. After all, he can't find the direction he wants in Saitama. Advertisement. After the battle, Matt will dissolve his personality and become weak and weak, with golden bangs drooping along the thin cheeks, sunken eye sockets, and even spitting blood when excited. Everyone knows this setting, and the reason has been revealed when I saw Green Valley Isuisa at the beginning. Of course it's okay. Olmert patted his fierce mouth, with a confident smile on his face, making Spider-Man Peter secretly relieved. Then he looked at Collison, who was carrying a group of people in black, and knew that the relevant department had come and flew away hurriedly with spider silk. He also didn't want to have anything to do with such a department, it was too troublesome. "Hello, I'm CIA agent Collison." Collison didn't care about Peter's departure, and directly greeted Olmert with a gentle smile. "So far, SHIELD hasn't contacted Spider-Man. It's not that they don't know. In fact, all the information about Spider-Man has been in the hands of SHIELD, and his parents are still acquaintances of Nick Fury. How could he not know? It's just that Nick Fury thinks that Peter is still too young and lacking in ability." Upon hearing this, Matt nodded clearly. As the #1 hero all year round, greeting the government departments is already a familiar way. Upon hearing this, Matt nodded clearly. As the #1 hero all year round, greeting the government departments is already a familiar way. "Olmert, we want to know some information about you, after all, your emergence was too sudden." Matt is a dark household in this world like Saitama. Sumo only arranged the most basic identity information, and other moving things are really unnecessary. Because it was made up, how could S.H.I.E.L.D. not be stupid to believe it? Collison didn't ask much, but the agent's interrogation skills were hidden in the language, but Olmert made no secret that he lived in the second villa on the outskirts of Manhattan. This caused Coelson's hairline to slip back a little bit, and he secretly said, "Sure enough, it has something to do with Sumo again." Olmert said a few unimportant, polite remarks and then jumped onto the house wall and left amidst the crowd's exclamation. Afterwards, Collison didn't say anything, and took the electric man away to check the scene with the police. SHIELD is both cautious and careful when it comes to Sumo. Although there was no strong evidence for the loss of the shooting probe, Nick Fury still believed a little bit. If there is no psychiatrist here, Coulson would definitely be happier. "Welcome back, hero." Sumo patted the sofa next to him, pointed to the TV, and exclaimed, "Advertisement, it's worthy of being a perennial #1 hero, really strong enough." The scene of Olmert defeating the Electric Man was being replayed on the TV. The host was even more excited and uttered compliments, and he was about to photograph Olmert on Captain Steve's head. Matt sat on the sofa, and his whole body began to shrink after his personality was lifted, but it was not a thin, sick child that outsiders had speculated, but a handsome blonde man of medium size and no difference from ordinary people. It's somewhat similar to the young version of Matt in the animated movie Eating Two People's Hero. That's right, the current Matt can be said to be in the strongest period. It is the stage where the AFO has not formally played against the AFO 5 years before the beginning of the plot. Shifu Shimuranana has not yet died in the battle, and he has not been seriously injured by AFO, half of his respiratory organs damaged, and his stomach completely removed. He is still the strongest symbol of peace in life, with a powerful deterrent. Transformation is not limited, and time is only related to physical strength, but he will not maintain the image of a strong man in his leisure time. Can't say that. Just this battle makes me feel that this world is really not easy. Olmert waved his hand and said truthfully, then took over the information compiled by G. Loisi and turned it over. This kind of information is specifically for summoning characters to clearly understand the general information of Marvel Universe. Of course, God has not said such information. No need. It includes mutants, heroes, SHIELD, and so on for a rough understanding. The details of the future vary from person to person, so I will use Alice to notify you if you encounter it. Come with me to the Hero Academy tomorrow morning. Are you interested in being a teacher? I believe the students will welcome you very much, and this world is a little different from the previous ones. To be a true symbol, more heroes are needed. Sumo knocked the seats and slowly suggested. After going through the information 2 or 3 times, Olmert looked at the excited people interviewed on TV. After thinking for a moment, he said calmly and solemnly, "The world that makes everyone laugh and lives requires symbolism. No matter where I am like this." When Sumo heard this, the corners of his mouth raised, and he reminded, "But the enemies of this world are not only from the front. The so-called hero is someone who can gradually smash adversity at any time." Seeing this, Matt showed a confident smile fearlessly. Chapter 138. When the first ray of sunlight fell on New York in the morning, the thin morning mist was still filling, and the cool breeze stroked Westchester. This is a small county in the northern suburbs of New York. There is a retro-style castle standing in it. Before today, no one knew that the Xavier Youth Talent Academy was actually a school for mutants. And just today, the name of this school has been changed to officially become Hero Academy. At the end of yesterday's new issue of My Hero Academia, it was officially announced to the world that the variant human hero was coming. A bright spring day, uncharacteristically from the usual tranquility, is full of noise. The whole Westchester ushered in the largest flow of people in history, crowded with people, rushing into the castle flowing into the distance. Regardless of young and old, men and women, and any profession, come and take a look. What is the official Hero Academia like? The media at home and abroad are even more in flux. How could such an event that is enough to be recorded in the annals of history not have their witness? Rachel's family moved slowly towards the castle crowded in the crowd, and the parents were a little nervous and firmly grasped Rachel's hands. It didn't take long to come to the big front gate of the castle and separate the tourist area and the college area. Rachel's family walked into the college area under the guidance of others. Several X-Men police contacted the mutants and their relatives here. The most eye-catching is Beast, the director of the Mutant Affairs Department. He is burly in shape and covered in blue. He also wears glasses to make others feel inexplicably happy. Rachel? Are you sure you want to join the Hero Academia? Beast made a final confirmation calmly, turning his head to look at his parents and asking the last question. Due to background reasons, it is impossible for dominant mutants to account for 80% of all mankind, and the Hero Academy is sparsely populated, so it is impossible to hold admissions exams to eliminate a group of people. As early as when the mutants came, the X-Men had already contacted by phone to determine whether to include them. Some mutants with low potential were tactfully rejected. The hero is not joking, playing house. The parents of each mutant are not willing to send in to do some adventurous things. There are no entrance exams, only sub-subject exams. Well, I want to be a hero. Rachel nodded with a firm look in her eyes. Their parents are also sure, and Ermet changed their minds last night. Advertisement Beast nodded, welcoming the arrival of the new hero girl, and then let people take Rachel and their parents into the academy. Rachel, my name is Jean Grey, and I will be your teacher in the future. The red-haired girl Jean took Rachel to a classroom, while her parents took it to the lawn self-service area on the other side. Rachel followed Jean closely, telepathically telling her that the teacher in front of her was of the same ability as her, so Rachel felt more at ease. There are several teenagers in the classroom, and all the mutants who have joined this time seem to be a little less, which is what Charles is worried about. Come on, introduce yourself, and choose a hero name for your future. Jean clapped his hands and asked the freshmen to sit in a circle to promote communication, starting from the left-hand side. I'll come first. My name is John Aoxing, I am a self-replacement Thunderbird, and I have superpower and super speed, and developed hearing and vision. The first to speak was a teenager with a face full of excitement and bold personality. At the same time, he pointed to the boy who was younger than him, and said, My brother James, Zhengtu, has the same ability as me. Zhengtu nodded sheepishly. My name is Clarice, and my ability is space teleportation. You can make me blink. The girl with magenta hair and light green eyes was a little timid. My name is Max, and my ability is to absorb and manipulate photons as a beam of light. The older young man said, You can also call me and pay for food. My name is Lauren Straker, and I can control elements. The blonde girl Huo smiled and introduced her brother. My name is Lauren Straker, and I can control elements. The blonde girl Huo smiled and introduced her brother. Andy, it's mind power, I haven't thought about the code name yet. Lauren was a little annoyed. Finally, there is Rachel, who weekly speaks of her abilities, and is codenamed Surprise Girl. Okay, let's talk together, and wait for the opening ceremony to begin. With a gentle voice on the piano face, he turned and went out. It is easier for peers to communicate, so that freshmen have plenty of space and it is easier for them to be at ease with strangers. It didn't take long before the boys and girls began to have a distinct conversation, and then the predecessors Zyoki and Gangle Ishii who came and took them to become familiar with the things in the academy. Visitors on the lawn and families of mutants all chatted here. The green grass, central fountain, and swimming pool made them unexpectedly good at the Hero Academy. This is the Hero Academy. The mutants thing seems to be a big deal. Lauren's father Reed and his wife Guy Turlin walked on the lawn and looked around, and his wife couldn't help sighing. Advertisement. Well, they are really making a lot of noise. I heard that the top management has also set up a secret agency. Reed frowned and couldn't help but worry. His colleague belongs to a special organization, and a few days ago he deliberately let out the wind not to drip into this muddy water. Reed couldn't help but smile. He didn't want to happen to find that all his children were mutants. Could he not seek protection? At this stage, an organization like the Hero Academy has appeared. I am in a government department that is completely incapable of protecting my children, so I simply find a backer. You shouldn't have come, the media has already spread the image, I'm afraid. Guy Terran watched the reporters gathered here with long guns and short cannons, worried. It's useless. When the children walk into the academy, they will know the identities of all their relatives. Reed said bitterly but decisively, I handed over my resignation letter before I came here, for the safety of the children. This gentleman is right, it's all for the children of the future. Interrupted in a voice gap, coming from the side of the two of them. You are? Reed was startled, he didn't expect anyone to be so close he didn't even notice. Sue Mo? Chairman of Marvel Comics. Guy Terran asked in surprise. When Reed heard the words, he also let go of his throat, and he was most afraid of coming from the relevant department. Now the top executives are suspecting that Sue Mo has an affair with mutants. Not only that, it should be said that everyone in the world is sure. After all, the comics are too obvious. Reed thought secretly, he appeared here, and it seems that the relationship between the two will be officially announced. After thinking about it, he couldn't help secretly celebrating. It was also because of Sue Mo that Reed sent his children to this academy. The power of One Punch Man cannot be underestimated. Sorry, I didn't overhear intentionally. I just happened to pass by and I didn't expect that the two should be family members of mutants. Sue Mo said hello to the two in a cheerful self-acquaintance. At this time, there were cheers from the front. Sue Mo raised his mouth slightly when he saw this, and invited the two of them, to, let's witness the prologue of the heroic age together. Chapter 139. At this time, the lawn was full of people, most of whom were witnesses of tourists, and the other part were family members and reporters. The warm spring breeze is shining on people's cheeks, and most people's faces are full of curiosity and joy. Reporters fiddled with camera equipment to surround the speech platform. Clatter. A team of X-Men dressed in dark blue uniforms followed Lorna and walked out at a consistent pace, standing upright on both sides of the large platform, while Lorna jumped below. Below the platform are a few chairs. New students' family members can sit voluntarily. As the only invited guests, Sue Mo and Reed Guy, Trin, and his wife sit down together. Rachel's parents are next to them. Nick Fury in the Trident Mansion makes people stare at the display screen all the time, and sigh secretly. Sure enough, he started to act. Since Sue Mo and the X-Men established close ties, this day will eventually come, and he knew that 927 would not end with Stryker. But this is undoubtedly angering the high level of the registration faction. Nick Fury shook his head bitterly. It was really eventful. An old man in a wheelchair on the ultra-clear display was pushed onto the stage by Beast, and the reporters all pointed at Charles. Nick Fury squinted his one-eyed eyes and prayed secretly not to talk about some sensitive topics, but how could he not talk about it? Charles has a kind eyebrow, and greets everyone's gaze very calmly. He knows that almost 80% of the American people are now staring at him when they turn on the TV or computer. Today's speech is not limited to the opening speech of the college, it is also a turning point for the future direction of the entire college and even the mutant race, which will usher in turbulent waves everywhere in the world. Charles Xavier, this is my name, a mutant, born in. Charles's first words slammed into the comm sea like a shocking bullet, and the flashing lights kept flickering. Sue Mo under the platform listened to everything silently. The mutant school was little known before, and the members of the X-Men were not even recognized. Now the situation is getting better. But its leader Charles is not known to many people, they only know the Magneto who assassinated the president and the maiden who saved the president. Who is Charles? No one knows. At this moment, Charles's whispered words let everyone know the relationship between the three of them. Advertisement. After Charles introduced the source of everything, his conversation turned, his face solemnly said to the world. Mutants are not a curse, nor a disease, let alone ABD. They exist all over the world. With the increasing number of mutants due to environmental factors, more and more mutant children nowadays are enough to prove everything. Mutants are derived from the X gene, and it exists in the inheritance of humans from generation to generation. Mutants cannot be eliminated. They all come from humans. Today's mutants are afraid because of discrimination and oppression. Now there is no need to hide, even if not 80% of the world are mutants. Charles uttered a word, spoke clearly, and echoed through the microphone in everyone's minds. But in theory, all human beings have the possibility of the X gene. Two families whose ancestors have been ordinary people for generations can still give birth to mutant babies. These words spread to thousands of households, and the American people were shocked when they heard the words, which was completely different from what they knew. Under the perennial political needs, the MPs on TV have always insisted on an example, that is, mutants are just an example, we want to defeat him, human beings are still the hegemon of the earth, and so on. If what Charles said is true, it will show that all humans may be mutants. Then, isn't they Tenten's objection just to discourage themselves? Countless parents looked at each other and then turned their eyes on their children. As the mutant experimentation turmoil subsides, some people want to activate the mutant registration bill. But what if this is true? Wouldn't it be pushing the child into the fire pit? Suemo couldn't help laughing as he listened to the whispers of tourists in his ear. When they found out that if they were the target of future attacks, they would definitely be friendly to the mutants. Not every parent is Stryker, let alone Stryker sent his son to school in the first place, hoping to control his abilities freely. Every child is the heart and soul of their parents, and being sent to school does not mean such extreme thoughts as wanting the child to die. Most of them are just like the struck couple next to him. When they know that their children are mutants and are in danger, they will definitely choose to take them away. Suemo touched his chin and looked up at the blue sky. He couldn't help feeling that it was a coincidence that he met the parents of the heroine and heroine in Unnatural Talents. The world we have spent our entire lives guarding. The Cuban Missile Crisis and summits of various countries have mutants fighting for it. To be afraid and to hide will not be our life. Advertisement: we can still hold our heads up and announce to the world that going to school, working, getting married and having children are all rights that we should enjoy, and no one can deprive them. Charles's passionate speech continues. Both he and Magneto have strong personal charms, and they are always inspiring. Charles's words to prove for mutants shocked people all over the world, and some senior leaders in various countries could not help but feel the crisis. Why? Again, they are all vested interest groups, and they are all figures who are now at the apex of the pyramid. The future is mutants, so should they abdicate now and let them be virtuous? And some people realize that the general situation cannot be changed, and they have changed their political stance to flock the mutants to be fair. These people either have their offspring as mutants, just like the TV series Innate Talent, or they are afraid that future generations will be unfairly shouted in advance. In any case, the world has been fried, and countless experts and scholars have prepared their manuscripts and waited for it. After Charles left the microphone and finished his speech, everyone thought that they should end there. However, the people on the stage remained motionless, as if not finished. At this time, Suemo boarded the platform under the attention of everyone, standing beside the microphone with a plain expression. 2.2 The not-so-small voice came into the ear clearly, maybe everyone knows me, so I won't introduce it here. As an invited guest, I will introduce another heavyweight to everyone. He is the new director of the Hero Academy, a symbol of peace. As soon as Suemo raised his hand, a burly black shadow arrived as expected. Olmert. As soon as the voice fell, Ermat fell from the sky and gently landed in the space in front of the microphone. The tall and sturdy Olmert has always had a confident smile on his face, and the audience and the teenagers in front of the screen suddenly became a sensation. Boom! Damn Suemo! Nick Fury slapped the table angrily when he saw it, and the last thing he didn't want to see happened. Nick Fury slowly sat back on the chair, his whole body shivering. He guessed a possibility. Chapter 140. Nick Fury started to panic in combination with the current situation. He didn't know whether Suemo was intentional or unintentional. The appearance of Ermat will greatly change the status of mutants and help Charles to reverse the prejudices of the world. At the same time, after the comics were promoted in place, Ermat was more and more impressed in the world. He will replace the heroic role of Captain Steve, the righteous man of God. At that time, a living heroic man appeared in front of the public, and his attitude towards the White House of the United States was still unclear. It's impossible to be affected by Suemo, what should I do if I become hostile? The U.S. Constitution grants the American people the right to own guns in order to prevent one day when the government oppresses the people and can resist. Before the government had an army, the gun was an egg, but now it's different. If the people have powerful heroes hostile to the government, the consequences will be different. Nick Fury is planning for the worst in everything. He feels that Sumo is unlikely to rise up and call rebellion, but replacing the American symbol like Captain Steve is really timid. He believes that this is not the only thing he thinks. 24 Congress, the White House, and the groups behind the United States must also think so. No matter how the Steve team is shaped and praised him, the big guys are relieved because he is dead. I'm dead, I'm afraid of something. But now there is a living one, do they sleep well? The merit is high, the Americans may not have heard of it, but the truth is the same. It is one's own in the hand, and it is fixed, and if it is not in the hand, it is unknown, and the threat must be eliminated. Hey! Nick Fury let out a long sigh, and ordered to Commander Hill, to make Collison quicken his pace, we must stop Allmat's impression of young people. We need a captain. With the appearance of Ormit in the Hero Academia, the reporter once again shot a dazzling flash. Ormit walked fast last night and disappeared before they arrived on the scene for interviews. It must be big news to appear on this widely controversial Hero Academia, not to mention that many people think of the content in the comics and look at each other in unison. As soon as Ormit appeared on the stage, he grabbed the microphone, and a cold stern light spread under his thick golden eyebrows. He pointed to the front and shouted loudly, I am Ormit. I am here to formally issue a warning to criminals all over the world to stop your acts of endangering the public and surrender as soon as possible to mitigate the crime. I will officially declare war on you on behalf of the Hero Academy. We are heroes and will always guard the peace of the world. Advertisement. All those who need help, please remember one sentence. It's okay, why do you want to ask? Because, the hero is here. Olmert's domineering, cool, and dazzling debut announced, and every word was like a cardiotonic, in the hearts of all TV sets, computers, and everyone on the scene. Warm and safe. There is an indestructible mountain in front of them to shelter them from wind and rain. This is the thought in everyone's heart and mind after hearing the words, what are criminals afraid of? We have heroes. Then the opening ceremony really ended. Olmert was not a politician who couldn't say so many sensational things, he just said what should be said and did what should be done. The filming continues, because Sumo took the microphone at this time and took out a comic book from nowhere. The opening ceremony has come to an end. Here, a new issue of the comic magazine will be given to everyone present for free, which is the Juvenile Jump that will be released next week. There is a new serialized comic above. In addition, the first page of this issue of My Hero Academia has Ormit's autograph. In addition, the first page of this issue of My Hero Academia has Ormit's autograph. Hey! All those who hadn't been present were stunned, how could there be such an activity? I haven't heard of it at all. I went there if I knew it, and it's too late to go now. Countless fans rushed out of the house in the confusion of family and friends, and quickly drove to the Hero Academy in a car. Many of the visitors at the scene immediately cheered frantically and rushed to the small table where piles of comic magazines were placed on the side. Several company employees were called to work as coolies. Looking at the crowds, the air began to become anxious, and cold sweat broke out on their foreheads. Some tourists who seemed to have a gentle smile but cold eyes also mixed in to get comic magazines, and quickly searched for them with well-trained. A new comic appeared in their sight, a magical banned book catalog. Magic? These people raised their brows at the same time and were a little surprised. They didn't turn it over, but after looking around for a while and found that there was no observable point, they walked out of the boundaries of the Hero Academy. Pick up the mini communicator and report the situation. They are from various forces such as SHIELD, Hydra, and the military. A middle-aged man with an Asian face, his eyes squinted at the castle, exuding a strange light, and his mouth whispered softly, Director, I saw the target has entered the castle, do you contact him? Advertisement. No, now the limelight is booming, too many people are staring. Go and hold the magazine first, and lurch it. Recently Nick Fury has a bit of a bad temper, don't fall into it. I'll talk about it until this matter is over, yes. The chief seems to have found me. The middle-aged man suddenly moved his eyes to the side and palpitated, this is the first time, but he has no response. In this way, do what I said just now and decide later. After the mysterious voice in the middle-aged man's mind ended, he was mixed in the crowd as if nothing had happened. The opening ceremony is officially over. Reporters who want to interview more can be told that so far they have no choice but to go back and edit the manuscript. At the same time, there were noisy visitors outside the castle. Su Mo and Ermet walked into the corridor of the college, feeling someone peeping and staring directly at the past. Su Mo's supervision depends on 043 to judge the pronunciation of language by the slight movement of his lips. It's an Asian, muttering something. It doesn't look like he's speaking English. Speak in Japanese? It's not right, it should be a language he is very familiar with. It's Hyuxia. Su Mo, what are you looking at? Ermat looked at him puzzledly. It's okay, maybe it's because of the flowers. Su Mo shook his head, patted Ermet on the shoulder and walked into the classroom on the side. The X-Men and freshmen inside have been waiting for a long time. Su Mo just watched from a distance and didn't go up to speak, but focused on the Asians before. No, it should be the people from the Celestial Empire. Are you a Hyuxia in New York? Su Mo remembers that many of Marvel's movies and TV series have a bit of a Hyuxia character. It should be because he was a little curious to see him, a handsome fellow. After all, I didn't feel any malice. In the last lottery, in addition to Ermat, there were Giant Skills Tough Max, Ashura Unicorn Skills, Weird Power Max, Sensitive Max, and some useless peripheral clothing. This immediately raised the previous passive skills to the level of a complete dragon-level weirdo, so Sumo's nerve-conditioned reflex discovered that someone was spying on him. This time, Su Mo had a weird premonition from the peeping, and he always felt that something strange was happening. Chapter 141. In a dimly lit and secret place, several blurry images were used for dialogue through projection video, and the live broadcast just ended. How dare these gangsters say that humans are mutants? What a joke! One of them gritted his teeth and said bitterly. You must act, and they cannot be allowed to trample on the existing system at will. A vicissitudes of old man said. I have a proposal submitted by Bolivar Trask, you can introduce it. A faint voice sounded. At this time, a short middle-aged man was projected from the center, and Bolivar greeted the big figures cautiously, and then cut to the topic. SK Industries has developed a robot that can subdue mutants. The first sentence of the opening shocked the spirits of all the big figures and their eyes became solemn. After Bolivar's explanation, this robot has the ability to detect any type of variant, and their genes enable them to instantly transform themselves, thereby capturing and defeating mutants. Use the principle of mutual restraint to destroy powerful mutants, and even imagine that the enemy is the X-Men. Oh? How does such a powerful robot possess the ability to transform? A big man asked curiously. I have never heard of robots being deformable before. The figure with a faint voice before said, I solemnly introduce, this Bolivar is actually the son of the founder of LAC Industries. As soon as these words came out, everyone could not help but remember something. In the 1973 Magneto assassination of the president, a scientist once invented the Sentry robot to deal with mutants. Unexpectedly, Magneto used his backhand to almost kill himself, and then the magic girl appeared to stop the disaster from happening. The scientist at the time was Bolivar Trask. Later, the president threw it out as a scapegoat in order to thank the mutants. Finally, the scientist was imprisoned for the rest of his life until his death. Although my father ended in failure, my last will be completed in my hands. Bolivar Trask is also my life's name. Little Bolivar replied decisively. Even if the Devil's Girl took away the deformed gene data, but his father knew that it had the ability to deform, how could he not guard against nature and kept a part of it secretly? After years of improvement, the second-generation Sentry robot was born. I hope to get your support. The various projection faces looked at each other, their eyes gleamed, and a faint voice sounded again. I propose that the Sentry robot be placed in the Sentry Secret Service to cooperate with the operation team to carry out all secret missions. Advertisement. I second. I have no opinion. I agree. Numerous figures passed the bill one after another, which represented that LAC Industries was reused again, just like Stryker in the past. Bolivar was overjoyed when he heard the words, and his father's vision for many years was finally completed in his hands. Bolivar, even if the bill is passed now, it is impossible to arrest mutants grandiosely considering the current situation. Yes, I know. And we don't know how powerful this robot is. We don't want to be swallowed up like your father. The figure who made a faint voice stared at Bolivar closely. Bully Walton felt cold and shivering at the time, and even the pressure of projection dialogue could pass through. The meaning of this sentence is simple and clear. If you fail, go to see your father underground. So the current task of the sentry robot is to catch mutants who are outside the United States or outside the jurisdiction of the Hero Academy. So the current task of the sentry robot is to catch mutants who are outside the United States or outside the jurisdiction of the Hero Academy. We need to see real results, not scrap copper and iron, before we can take action. I see. With the end of the video projection, Bolivar leaned forward and sat down on a chair. These damn politicians! Bolivar secretly resented, making him think so beautifully. Feeling that he was not safe enough, he once again connected to another mysterious video channel. Cut off one head and grow 2 more heads. A low voice came from the video. Bolivar counseled his head, inspected his office, and whispered, "Hail Hydra, long live the Hydra." As soon as the voice fell, a gentle white man appeared on the screen. "Little Bolivar, what do you want me to do?" "Baron Strack, I need your help." Bolivar preached timidly. Advertisement: Baron Strack is one of the leaders of the Hydra, and his full name Wolfgang von Strack is also the line that he managed to catch. Well, behind Bolivar is Trask, and the Baron is Strack. It's okay if you remember. Help? As far as I know, aren't you helping them with things? Baron Strack snorted disdainfully. They are too scared to deal with the mutants and they are afraid to provoke someone. Bolivar said indignantly. He paused and said, "Now I need to use sentry robots to make some results, but they won't let me catch mutants in the United States." "Huh? What then?" Baron Straker spread his hands, saying that it's my shit. You helped me find the traces of a few mutants. They are still relatively strong. I want them to know that sentry robots can defeat them. As a reward, I can give you a sentry robot but cannot show up in the United States, otherwise I will be suspected. After Baron Strack was meditating for a moment, his pupils flickered again and again, thinking about something. Bolivar was also uneasy, only seeing the results of the battle. Sentry robots can officially enter the Secret Service, and this result can only be found by himself. Don't think about it in New York. In the territory of Hero Academy, mutants in the United States are popping up like bamboo shoots. He shouldn't be caught in the street. Even if it feels to the touch in the middle of the night, fighting will definitely cause movement. What the high, King Neo's layer wants is to fight against the sentry robot and the strong enemy, rather than just catching a rookie and showing no value. That is to say, let the sentry robot fight against the stronger mutants, and report back when they win, otherwise the talk will be skipped. After all, the future is to deal with the X-Men. So the big shots eliminated the United States from the beginning, and the influence of arresting people in the street is really too great. They asked Bolivar to go outside to verify his combat power, which was also a test for him. Baron Strack raised his head and agreed, and said at the same time, I recently discovered that Sokovia has a pair of mutants with good siblings and brothers. According to the intelligence, they are looking for Tony Stark's revenge. It is said that the missile from Stark Industries fell into their house and the adoptive father and mother died. Oh, it's really unfortunate news. Bolivar didn't feel sad, but was full of joy. Then choose them too. Chapter 142. The slow time slipped through people's hands, and 3 days had passed since the opening ceremony of the Hero Academy. Mr. Stark, please answer my question. However, Tony, who was dressed decently, got up and walked away from time to time when sitting in the position, with a frivolous and disdainful smile on his face, making the surrounding counselors angry. The hottest video, except for the opening ceremony, was shown on TV recently, and that was Tony's debate in Congress. After Tony publicly exposed that he was Iron Man, he began to fight criminals everywhere, and he still targeted terrorists as the first target. Even though the topic of mutants has been the hottest topic recently, the news of Iron Man is not inferior to follow closely behind. On the night of the opening ceremony of the Hero Academy, Tony Stark saw a criminal while watching a racing game. The energy arc, which was almost the same as Tony, was also destroyed by a pair of iron lumps swinging a whip carrying an electric current on the scene of the game. This incident caused some members of Congress to express their opinions, asking Tony Stark to surrender the Iron Man armor and yelling at the same time to analyze the pros and cons. After that, the Congress appeared. Whiplash. Now that the Hero Academy has appeared, how come the villains still pop up one after another? Suemo shook his head at home, and said depressed, looking at the house with only one bamboo rat Giali, not 843 forbidden to feel sad. Girlfriend Lorna became the leader of the X-Men and often worked in the academy to develop superpower, leaving him alone. Fortunately, at this time, another girlfriend called in and invited him to accompany him to the Comic-Con. Will Golly go to the Comic-Con? Is there anything to eat? Should there be, after all, there must be food to be sold during the visit. Then I will go. Jiali followed Su Mo out of the villa and hitchhiked towards the center of Manhattan. In the car, he was slightly surprised to find that Manzan was an event organized by his own company, which was born at the strong request of fans. In the center of Manhattan, the Marvel Anime Fair is the place where Saitama punched his hate last time. Advertisement. I have to say that the level of architecture in this world is simply an infrastructure madman, and the neighborhood has been initially restored in just a few months. It seems to be an infrastructure company run by a Hyuxia. When Su Mo came here with Jiali, there were already crowds of people. When I drove the car into the parking lot and came to the gate of the exhibition hall, I saw that it was full of strange costume coser all over the corner. At the same time, the exhibition area is organized according to the comics. As a result, the number of comics donated by the Magic Forbidden is not enough, and many comics are still in the situation of begging for a copy. Su Mo. A sweet joyous tone came in, and then the whole person was wrapped in a soft body. Gwen, can this be discovered? Su Mo now casually put a small illusion on his body to distort the vision of others and reduce the sense of existence. The taste is deceptive. Gwen wore a silver grey shirt, just over the devil's waist, covering a short leg like a short skirt, and then a seductive black silk. The socks stretched out and wrapped. Smooth and soft. This is Su Mo slipping with one hand directly over the slender waist, then holding his backhand, directly lowering his head and biting Gwen's ear. The fair skin suddenly turned pink, and the reserved Gwen couldn't help picking up a small fist and smashing it a few times, and then his body softened. The fair skin suddenly turned pink, and the reserved Gwen couldn't help picking up a small fist and smashing it a few times, and then his body softened. Well, so many people. Gwen saw that his lover still wanted to do such a shameful thing under the public, even the Americans couldn't make a living. It seems that no one will do it. Su Mo said with a smirk. There is an indescribable reverie in my heart, and he secretly said, let's see how to clean up you at night. Gwen glanced at Su Mo fiercely, took his thick arm, and said eagerly, your ticket for this event is too expensive, come with me soon. Let's go. I saw Garli just now, why is it missing? Don't worry, she'll do as long as she doesn't cause trouble. Let's find food. Su Mo and Gwen walked in at the same time. As for the tickets, of course they turned to the company on the road and asked Uncle Andy to get them. The fun of the comic exhibition is that many comic fans that have not come are unimaginable. Here, like-minded young people laugh and talk together, and the happy atmosphere resounds here. Of course the biggest interesting thing is that you never know whether the female coser standing in front of the exhibition area is a male or female. A burst of screams came from the respective exhibition areas, and the emotions of despair, horror, and even curiosity also radiated. Advertisement. You are a man. Yes. I do not believe. Don't believe me, you feel the handle. Ah. Shet, fuck, today I just want to welcome the man. A heavy otaku cried hysterically in front of a coser, clinging to the hairy calf wrapped in white silk. From then on, the name of the women's magnate was born here and came to Marvel Universe, blinding batch after batch of fascinating eyes. Seeing this, Su Mo and Gwen smiled with interest, and they wandered around looking at the exhibition area. Finally, there was an exhibition area that attracted Gwen's attention, not the comics exhibition area but the game exhibition area. Several men and women crackled on the keyboard in the exhibition area, and some slid their hands happily with their mobile phones. What is this? Gwen hurriedly stepped forward to watch. It is a competitive MOBA online game with 300 heroes. Manga characters were manipulated one after another, and Gwen happily played with each other, while Su Mo took the cell phone handed by the waiter and played with it. 300 heroes have been successfully moved from small games to mobile games and mobile games. Today, they will be directly released to the world. The mobile game Su Mo is named directly after the glory of the king. The difference is that the mobile game uses relatively popular animated characters because of its operation, while the terminal game has a large capacity and uses many comic characters. At the same time, Su Mo received good news a few days ago that the animation production of Ghoul and Giant has ended and is currently being watched on the internet. One Punch was moved to the TV station for an unprecedented time before the network was finished. A sky-high price. The company once again expanded its staff under Su Mo's command and policy, and at the same time carried out Naruto, Shinigami, and Slash. The animation of the Crimson Eye and the Black Bullet can be said to be a step that has directly made the industry shake 3 times. The first 2 are long stories, and the latter 2 are short stories until they are in line with the weekly booklet. The animation team has been producing more and more quickly because of their rich experience, making Andy smile. Just as the Comic-Con was going on like a fire, the night was getting darker and the darkness began to fall. At this moment someone looked up at the sky, pointed at the night sky happily, exclaimed, "Look, it's Iron Man." Everyone looked at the dazzling light across the sky, but they couldn't be happy. They saw rows of fires splashing on the Iron Man armor continuously behind them. And going forward is where they are. Chapter 143. Rumble. The firelight from the bullets splashed in the air, screams one after another, and everyone rushed to flee. On the stage of the Hammer Industry exhibition, Justin Hammer in a suit and leather shoes stared at what happened. What happened? Rows of steel armor jumped into the air without his permission to pursue Tony Stark. It's Yvonne who actually used me. Justin shuddered, panic appeared on his face, and rushed to the backstage to run away directly. Judging from the current situation, don't even think about any military orders. I am afraid that you will become a lamb to be thrown out. At the edge of the crowd, Pepper and Hawkeye Button hurried in. Da-da-da. The vent of a metal storm rang out in mid-air, and the smell of sulfur smoke was dissipated by the airflow. Shit, Yvonne, he is crazy. Jiwis activates all the armor in the storage. Tony kept dodge the attack of the steel armor, turning back and bursting out a few from time to time, but it was really weak. 2. Tony's armor is some of the performance and appearance of the Mark 9 has been processed, it is more refined and powerful than the previous armor. Yvonne found out that the steel armor couldn't be beaten by remote control, and Tony became frantic when he did it on the civilians. Tony had to save people everywhere and became exhausted. At the same time, in order to block some fatal attacks on normal people, the degree of armor wear was increasing. Until now, the Iron Army has turned around to deal with him, using the amount of armor that made him suffer from high damage. Sir, there are many suggestions for avoidance by the comic crowd. Jiwis sent a reminder. I know. Tony turned to the side and tried to lead away, but the Iron Army rushed straight down and threatened him again. Damn Yvonne, FK. Tony rushed down and fired at several steel armors. The noise during the show overwhelmed the sound of bullet jets from high altitude for a while, until someone noticed it close at hand. In the remote game exhibition area, Gwen has abandoned the reserved learning style of the past and turned into a surprised game fan. At this time, Sumo teamed up with people to fight with his eyes closed, and they all had depression. When he hit the other side of the last group, the slight air pressure became abnormal. Sumo couldn't help but raise his head and look at the ceiling of the room, his ears flicked, and shouts came into his ears all over the way. There was also a sharp scream from above. With a raised brow, under the doubt of everyone, he got up and made Gwen 2 steps back together. Immediately afterwards, the clear sound of glass cracking came from above, and the red armor suddenly smashed through the ceiling and fell onto Sumo's computer table. Expensive computers were crushed directly into scrap by heavy armor, and the desk was overwhelmed with a cracking sound. Tony. Seeing this scene, Sumo couldn't help but twitch on his face that had always been calm and breezy. Inspired by G. Loas, Tony's research and development of Mark's armor far surpassed that of the same period in the movie, but now he looks embarrassed. When? Several steel armors fell from the sky and blasted on the ground with a dull sound of metal collision. Everyone in the exhibition area rolled their eyes and was shocked by this sudden scene. In the end, the calm Gwen beside Sumo shouted at the people around him, "Run!" Advertisement. Hearing this shout, everyone shuddered and ran outside without saying a word. Damn it, why haven't the other armors of Jiwis arrived yet? Tony staggeredly propped up Mark 9, which had been blown out of darkness by bullets and missiles. There are still 3 minutes to arrive, and the armor damage resistance has reached a critical value. Jiwis did not report the slightest emotionally cold report. The leading steel armor is Tony's friend Colonel Roddy. At this time, his war machine was transformed from the Mark IV who went to Tony's house not long ago. Why didn't Pepper stop the terminal? Tony shouted anxiously. Even if the terminal is not stopped, Roddy's control center at Hammer Industries should have no security at this time. On the other side of the communication, Pepper was slightly flustered, and responded, "No, Yvonne secretly put 2 steel armors behind this, and no SHIELD agent has breached it." Tony also heard the metal bombing from time to time, which made his face pale and ugly. He didn't expect Yvonne to be so comprehensive. At this time, War Machine Nero saw all the red dots on the display, and couldn't help but annoyed. Tony, the system has started to lock the target again, and now everyone around him. Yvonne Vank is an extremely smart person. He knows that there is a big gap between steel armor and mark armor, so he doesn't have direct rigidity. He knew that Tony would definitely ignore himself to save people, so he always used this to make Tony tired of coping, hiding in the dark and waiting for the final collapse of Mark's armor. Clatter! 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 A series of metal storms filled the game exhibition area. The densely formed large nets attacked Tony, including Sumo and Gwen on one side. At the same time, several other steel armors walked to the exhibition hall outside the exhibition area to prepare for a massacre. Buzzing! At this time, Tony threw himself out of the armor that was about to fall apart, and the two palms directly exploded with amazing energy beams, tearing the two steel armors that were about to leave in an instant. The shoulders set up a large number of small missiles and kept launching them, covering the rest of the armor, which also exposed themselves to the big metal net. Bang! 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 He kept hitting the armor, and the system built into the mask also continuously sounded the alarm. At this time, he couldn't care why the vital signs of the two people next to him still existed. Tony let out a cold shout, "Yvonne, you mouse hiding in an underground ditch, now I'm here to catch it." Tony wants to excite Yvonne and use the last bit of energy to defeat him so that everything will end. Ha ha ha, Tony, are you acting stupid as me? I will return everything your father has done for 40 years to you in 40 minutes. A strong Russian sounded in the war machine armor that Roddy was in. Sri Lankan English. For example, if you call Peppers now and ask her how is she. Tony was too late to scold him, he directly connected Pepper's communicator, and hurriedly shouted as soon as he was connected, "Leave Pepper, quickly." "I'm fine, Tony, how are you doing?" Pepper interrupted directly, making Tony's voice stagnate, and had to respond. "I'm fine, it will be over soon." "Really? Tony, the people from the Hero Academy are here, and there is a girl who stopped the steel armor all at once and it was crumpled." After Pepper heard the words, the heart in her throat was also let go, and she was right. The back of Lorna gradually left and said with joy. Tony hung up the communication and shouted to Yvonne, "You can confirm it now." "Hey? What's the matter?" There was a panic from the war machine people, making Colonel Roddy very helpless. "Damn it, in that case." Halfway through, the ownership of War Machine was returned to Roddy. Apparently the terminal successfully regained it. When Tony finally breathed a sigh of relief, he was about to go out with Roddy to solve the Steel Legion outside, but found that the two people next to him were still there, and he couldn't help but turn his head to take a look. "Hi, Tony." Sumo said hello with a smile on his face, and Gwen raised his hand in time. Advertisement hiss. Tony took a breath and almost passed away. He was beating his life and he didn't expect his biggest thigh and friend to watch the show. However, Sumo had already anticipated and explained first, "Tony, I am believing in you, who are you, how can Tony Stark let others help, you're right." When Tony heard this, he was very energetic, and the narcissism attacked directly, and he said triumphantly, "Yes, I am Tony Stark." Grinning on the mouth, MMP in my heart. How could he admit his weakness and go down on his knees when he is arrogant? When the crying outside made the four of them realize that it was not a small talk, Colonel Roddy rushed out first, and the three followed. What catches the eye is the nearly 10 steel armors suspended in midair that are constantly shooting at the fleeing people below. The Manzan security guards were unable to fight back and could only guide the people to run into a safe area. Some reporters who participated in the Manzan took risks and kept taking pictures of the entire incident. Amid the deafening roar, Tony and Roddy greeted them, and Gwen hurriedly pulled Sumo to safety. In the eyes of his girlfriend, Sumo is still an ordinary man with outstanding power to kick a pumpkin bomb before, and a pragmatic cartoonist. Sumo was unmoved, instead pointed to the entrance of the exhibition hall and said plainly, "Don't worry, don't forget the other new heroes except Iron Man." Gwen looked in the direction and saw a few strangely dressed young people rushing in from the entrance of the exhibition hall. She even saw a few minors. Hero? Hero Academy. Gwen couldn't help wondering, this outfit was very different from the X-Men, it looked like it was not the same uniform but more personalized. Sumo didn't respond, but smiled happily. Almit began to reform after entering the academy, and the training aspect will change the painless practice of holographic projection. Use a lot of funds to add the neural pain system to the body and use it with projection to create a strong-willed student. The previous battle between the men's police and the Brotherhood was because they were all mutants, and they didn't work hard. This was a great mistake in Ormit's view. How can you be a hero when you haven't seen blood? In particular, the justice execution goal of the Hero Academy in the future is no longer limited to mutants, and everything will be cancelled. At the same time, combat uniforms also vary from person to person. They are not the uniform clothing of the X-Men. They use Stark Industries connections to make many auxiliary clothing that suits them. Because it's not so high-end, Stark Industrial does it easily. This made Nick Fury's angry hair no longer grow, and the Hero Academy used Suemo and Stark to describe the relationship step by step closer to what he had guessed. It happens that there are many reporters on the scene, and the appearance of the young hero will be formally active in the battle of non-mutants, appearing in the eyes of the world. You must know that Ermat's previous warning sounded passionate to young people, but in the eyes of criminals who had never read the comics, it was a slander in the world, just scornful. Now the appearance of the college students can just confirm the Ermat's warning, a resounding slap on the criminals, and a powerful shock to them. The Age of Heroes has arrived. Chapter 144. Call out! Call out! Call out! Several young girls in strange costumes ran wildly on the street, and the hero squad led by the powerful Thunderbirds rushed over after receiving the alarm. On the road, Hanmer Industries used the Skynet system to detect Lorna and let them go, rubbing 2 pieces of scrap by herself. It is a test for the hero team. In the past few days, the hero squad was limited to dealing with ordinary people, and there were no superpowers from robbers, murderers, and so on. Although this has a deterrent effect on the stability of society, it is not enough. Superpower criminals still go their own way, but New York does not have monsters every day. This time the target is the Iron Army, which is considered a practice, and it is also a stage where they show their hands. Big Sister is really violent. Thunderbird couldn't help shivering, and no one would be amazed to see the mighty force that controls the magnetic field from a distance. Can't help but feel insignificant for his mutant ability. 090 All say that all people are created equal. In fact, there are inequalities everywhere, the differences between mutants and humans, and the differences within mutants. Some people have been high-level mutants since they were young, and their ability to eat and sleep is increasing, such as telepathy is even more obvious. And some of them have been low-level mutants all their lives. Thunderbird knows that even though he is the captain, he is only now, and the few behind him are all potential high-level mutants. One's own way also touches the superior ability. The eldest sister is Magneto's daughter, she must be too strong. Gia, she said. Flickering a little bit and then said, it's almost here, the speed is solved, otherwise Teacher Ermat will go crazy. As soon as the voice fell, everyone in the team went numb, and Olmerd had never been merciful when training them. Fighters like Thunderbird and Zhengtu as team members are inevitably beaten in order to learn combat skills and remember their instincts. A large crowd of people screamed and escaped from the Mansion Hall in front, forming a crowd. According to the original plan, the flashing helped us teleport in. Rachel, you finally go in and check if there are any criminals hiding in the dark. Thunderbird said calmly. With a flicker forward, the purple Uzumaki, which can only be passed by one person, suddenly appeared out of thin air. Advertisement Thunderbird took the lead and rushed in with the food, while the journey was supported by the flashing side. Rachel fell behind and let go of the spirit fluctuations and slightly rippled into the exhibition hall. The flashing ability is not mature enough, and each time it can only accommodate 2 people to teleport, it is forced to dissipate. As for the sisters and brothers of Andy and Lauren, they enter from the other direction. In the exhibition hall, Tony and Roddy launched an offensive against the steel armor, and the powerful energy beam tore through the armor like tofu. However, as soon as Tony flicked a few rounds, he was sluggish. The energy loss was too large and the armor capacity had reached its limit, so he and Roddy were bombarded everywhere with small missiles. Sir, there are a few teenagers in the Hall of Development that seem to be students from the Hero Academy mentioned by Miss Pepper. Chiawissa's voice sounded in Tony's ears, making him a little annoyed. Tony is arrogant and never accepts the word help in his dictionary, but the reality is not as good as he wants. Whether it was the last hate war or the ravages of the steel armor, one person couldn't help himself. Thinking that Tony had a strong sense of crisis, he stepped up the development of the Mark series armor. Tony Stark can truly refuse to help when he is alone in the army and the other has the power to destroy the country. Drink. Thunderbird passed through the purple Uzumaki and hit the nearby steel armor with a heavy hammer. The powerful physique brought violent force to shock the armor. The armor couldn't help staggering backwards and almost fell down. The buzzing sound sounded at this time, and a dazzling white light beam pierced the armor. The armor couldn't help staggering backwards and almost fell down. The buzzing sound sounded at this time, and a dazzling white light beam pierced the armor. The food came out from behind Thunderbird, and the two of them worked together to directly put down a steel armor. When a steel armor was suspended in midair and shot directly below, a terrifying tearing force suddenly shrouded from all directions, and the entire steel body was smashed bit by bit like a heavy hammer. Metal fragments couldn't help falling from midair, and Andy in the corner of the exhibition hall was happy when he saw it. At this time, a steel armor was found in the distance and the mini-missiles were set up on both shoulders and launched, and a bang flew in front of Andy in the blink of an eye. Andy didn't panic, but calmly continued to control his mind and directly hit the steel armor into the wall when he rushed towards it, seeming not to pay attention to the missile that was close at hand. He knew it was safe here. A transparent barrier force field appeared in front of you, and the missile exploded suddenly and did not break through the invisible force field, only waves and ripples appeared. Don't hide yourself. Lauren glared at his younger brother, and began to put down his hands. This is her ability to control air molecules and water to form a force field, and her brother Nian Li can cooperate with each other, both offensive and defensive. Advertisement: the flicker cooperates with the journey to perform short-range flicker, and the purple Uzumaki stroboscopic flashes will destroy a steel armor in a few flashes. Wow, the hero boys did a good job. After Tony teamed up with Roddy to destroy a few frames, only to find that the monsters were robbed. He landed from the sky beside Thunderbird and patted him on the shoulder frivolously. Thunderbird felt a little pain by this shot, knowing that it must be the jealousy of Cao Baonan. It is true that the variants are powerful, but the performance of these steel armors is completely incomparable with Iron Man's Mark series. For example, Thunderbird can rely on its strength to overthrow a steel armor but cannot make the Mark 9 step back. Had it not been for the damage resistance of Mark's armor to the limit, Tony could overturn all the steel armor by himself. The young heroes gathered around and celebrated the victory happily. Some people in the exhibition hall who had not left and hide could not help but come out and give the greatest applause. This makes the young mutants feel more honorable, which is what Charles and Olmert hoped. A few reporters squeezed up with the camera, and Tony, who was self-conscious, wanted to speak up, but found that the microphone was placed in front of the food, which made him a little embarrassed. When he relaxed, Roddy banned for a while and joked, "Why is our Tony still rejected by the media? No, I'm now an opportunity for seniors to give younger generations to shine." Tony squeezed out a smile, defended, and felt that the burden on his shoulders was a little lighter. You must know that when he chose to become Iron Man, he hoped that the world would become better and that the tragedy of Yinsen's hometown would not repeat itself. But his single force 1.5 thin and non-stop fighting criminals also made him a little tired, and a group of like-minded people are completely sure of the path he has taken. Especially the emergence of groups like Young Heroes, let him save his youthful time to be willful and reckless. Sir, there is an energy response similar to the arc nearby. Jiawis came over with a basin of cold water. At the same time, the surprise girl Rachel's telepathy also found a unique mental fluctuation full of malice, and hurriedly notified all the members. Sure enough, before the warning was issued, a silver-grey steel armor fell from the sky in front of everyone. It looked much smaller than the Iron Overlord but a little bigger than the Iron Man Mark armor. Ivan Vank! Tony shouted angrily, "This is a matter between you and me. We will settle accounts elsewhere." The people who had hid before are now surrounded and completely exposed to the eyes of the enemy, and the nearest people are less than 1 meter away from Ivan. Chapter 145. Between you and me? No, it's everyone's account now. The armor mask slowly opened, revealing Ivan's old face, and the red Lee's nose matched the Russian accent. "It's still fascinating here, New York. No, you are not welcome here, go back to prison." Tony curled his lips and mocked. Ivan appeared at the racing scene before and was defeated and imprisoned by him, but was later used by Justin Hammer to escape. Regarding Tony's sharp teeth, Ivan didn't bother with a violent wave of his arms forward. Accompanied by the crackling electric current, blue electric lights flashed out, and countless small electric snakes were spreading and hissing, coiling around two terrifying metal whips extending from both arms and wrists. "Want to be a hero so much? Tony, see who you can save. Ivan closed his mask, and the cold tone made all the people shudder, and then he swiped the whip at the nearest people. Ivan doesn't pay attention to the wrongdoers, he is not an American, and he has no feelings for this country at all. If you can use it, you have to use it, and that's how it used people to consume Tony. Pop! The strong sound of breaking through the air exploded, and the electric whip with dazzling blue light carrying the breath of 24 heart palpitations, suddenly whizzed past the people on the side. Seeing such a menacing electric whip, the target people were directly frightened and stunned there. He was half-hearted before hearing the sound. In his eyes, he was like the lion majesty who devoured people, and he was a hyuxia food at his disposal. Just at the moment, a purple Uzumaki flashes suddenly behind him, grabbed his back collar and pulled in and then disappeared in place. The air was torn apart and the iron whip hit the ground at the moment. The extremely high voltage brought the hot high temperature to cut out a dark Madara mark, and at the same time several cracks also spread from the hit point. At this time, the people screamed in panic and fled back. Tony reacted quickly and subconsciously shot an energy cannon, which hit the steel armor accurately, but only backed a few steps. A palm laser cannon is also useful for ordinary steel armor, and it is limited to Ivan's armor that is modified according to mark and made of heavy materials. The Lost Whip armor is not a low-quality product like the mass-produced steel armor. It is almost as good as the War Machine. With the electric whip provided by the pseudo-arc energy, its melee destructive power has exceeded Tony's current Mark 9 type. This electric whip goes down to ordinary people, needless to say directly into Coke. Tony's armor does not want to hit. Mutant? Ha ha ha, the little ghosts pretend to be heroes. A cold light flashed in Ivan's eyes, and a bitter voice came from the armor. Don't your teacher teach you to turn around when you encounter a strong enemy? Pop! The electric snake hovered the whip fiercely in the air once again, the intense temperature scorched the air with a peculiar smell, and was blown away by the stirred wind. The iron whip turned into a blue afterimage and struck at a very high speed, like two electric pythons opening their teeth and dancing their claws to bite the Thunderbird in the front. Thunderbird was shocked. If this whip is true, even if he has super endurance, he will be directly disabled. Advertisement boom. The electric whip hit a hard object in midair and made a muffled sound, which was Lauren's invisible force field. Hurry up, I can't hold on anymore. Lauren hurriedly shouted with a cold sweat on his forehead. Her ability is to control the combination of water molecules in a part of the air to form a force field, and the high voltage current on the iron whip constantly evaporates water molecules. Within a second, the invisible barrier made a cracking sound like glass, and the force field was rapidly disintegrating. Crossing the food hurriedly shot, two dazzling white lasers shot towards the whip. Ivan's brows twitched, and he felt that he couldn't directly brush his shoulders with the laser on his subconscious side, but it also left a pitch-black scratch, and the scorching temperature surged from above like a stream of heat. Cross-feeding is the most aggressive mutant in this group of new students. The absorbing light beam has strong penetrating power. Without a special shield, the Mark 9 defense is not good. Teacher Ormit only said that a hero is a person who can crush adversity. Jia, she sneered. Besides, you are not a strong enemy. Ivan became angry when he heard the words, and when he was about to swept away with the electric whip in his anger, a strong tearing force acted on the armor. Damn it! Ivan doesn't need to guess that it was made by these little ghosts. The material used in the powerful Morning Whip armor is extraordinarily strong and heavier than Mark. Damn it! Ivan doesn't need to guess that it was made by these little ghosts. The material used in the powerful Morning Whip armor is extraordinarily strong and heavier than Mark. Andy tried his best, sweating so much that he couldn't smash the mass-produced armor like before. Finally, he had no idea, and he directly pressed down with his mind. The heavy force immediately caused the surface of the whip to sink a little, and the entire armor movement became sluggish. Opportunity. Tony and Roddy raised the multi-barreled machine guns and the few mini-missiles madly dumping towards Ivan, and Tony exhausted all the energy cannons. As the rising smoke filled the air, Rachel used telepathic detection to remind him, it's not over yet. After hearing it, he hurriedly threw out the long-charged laser to make a knife and exploded into it. Ah! At this time, Ivan heard a painful cry. It seems that the laser of the feed hits directly, but unfortunately now he can't fire continuously, and every time he has to accumulate his strength to explode high-penetrating damage. Soon after the smoke and dust dissipated, Ivan's dark steel body appeared in front of everyone, with broken shells everywhere, and a large blood hole was directly pierced through the armor on the right side of the waist, and the blood was like a fountain. Damn it, damn mutant! Ivan roared hysterically, bursting out all the power to break free from Andy's thought power suppression, and stood up. The mask opened to reveal his savagely distorted face. Ivan's eyes showed blood, and he controlled the armor to run forward. The iron whip was injected with a more terrifying high-voltage current, and the electric snake kept crackling and neighing to make holes in the ground, and the scorched slides made people scared. Advertisement. Ivan ignored the warning that the armor was equipped with a system that warned of a rapid reduction in energy, and rushed to Tony frantically. He has seen the current situation clearly, and sooner or later will be defeated by Tony Stark with the help of Mutant Imp. For Ivan Vank, who wants to restore family glory and revenge, life is better than death. Just go out and fight. Ivan waved 2 electric whips at the mutant and pressed his whole body up. Flashing! Lauren yelled at this moment, constructing a barrier with both hands that did not appear in front of him but was far in front. When the flashing is heard, I know what it means. I just unfolded the purple Uzumaki and Ivan rushed in. Then Ivan unfolded the portal 10 meters in front of him and rushed out again. Boom! Ivan Vank only felt that he appeared 10 meters away, and then 633 hit the air wall in front of him with a heavy noise. At this time, while the portal was in front of the young heroes, the portal was behind Ivan. Rachel hurriedly launched a psychic storm to invade Ivan's mind. After several days of development by Chin and Charles, a sharp cone was formed and pierced into the depths of the soul fiercely. At the same time, Jiaoxi bent his knees forward and slid, because the portal opening was facing away from them, so he had to bend forward and slide through the portal and 2 lasers shot in. Although the 2 lasers were not stronger than the previous ones, they still pierced the bombed armor that had reached a critical value. Ah! BD! I won't let you go! Ivan madly hugged his head, his legs were directly pierced and blood was pierced, and his whole body was so painful that he made up his mind. Sir, the gradual increase in the energy of Ivan's armor should have activated the self-destruct program. It is preliminary estimated that it can directly blow up half of the exhibition hall. Tony couldn't help but rubbed his forehead and cursed fact directly, but there were still some people in this exhibition hall who had not escaped. Seeing the red armor of Lost Whip, the young hero was also at a loss. The flashing portal was now unable to translate and actively swallow people to teleport, and the power of thought and force field could not suppress the explosion. Su Mo was on the phone at this time, and Charles's emergency communication was in his ear, saying that his brother-in-law and sister were in danger. Clam? Brother-in-law? He has a ghost. No, it's Lorna's brother? Su Mo's brain turned quickly, and he quickly thought that Magneto had a pair of children. Lorna should be the youngest. The pupils in his eyes gradually lost focus, and compared to explosions, they were nothing but scum. What am I? I hold the root of the grass. Quicksilver is his brother-in-law. Chapter 146. Ha ha ha. Ivan Vank laughed wildly, and the 2 electric whips shattered the barrier force field, and the entire armor was glowing crimson from the center. The whole person was roasted at close range by the overflow of energy, and the whole body's outer skin was glowing with a terrifying dark light, and blood was constantly overflowing from it, and in a flash, it became a big red color opposite to the electro-optical person. You go to hell with me! The roar that seemed to come from the dark underground abyss made everyone horrified, and the dazzling light that was about to explode spread out before they could think of a countermeasure. It was too fast, and after less than a minute, the flashing portal was completely unable to transmit so many people. Half of the exhibition hall is at least 3,000 square meters, and the resulting aftermath will spread to the entire exhibition hall building. Just as everyone was panicking, a continuous flat voice resounded throughout the exhibition hall. The 75 of Bacud. 5 pillars of iron pipe. Bang! 5 huge grey iron pillars descended from the sky and hit Ivan's head and limbs directly. Ivan's head was directly pierced and burst into pieces, and his limbs did the same before he could play GG. The source of the explosion is the core of the armor, and the energy core of the arc is still releasing energy like waves. Bacud number 99. Prohibited. Out of thin air, a leather strap full of spirits wrapped the morning whip armor, and the nail that appeared suddenly nailed the edge directly. The 99 of Bacud. The second. The ban, the first song. The tension is stopped. Another huge strip of cloth wrapped around the upper armor, emitting a grey light, faintly suppressing the red light. Second song. Balian Lien. Dozens of iron thorns penetrate into the armor and are distributed around the energy core. Final. The ban is too strong. A huge steel with a swastika fell from the sky, dumping the morning whip armor into the ground and collapsing into it. It hasn't stopped yet, Sumo's voice still continues. The Gate of Dragon Tail. Sumo strode forward and threw a number of blue square pillars that exuded spiritual power from his hand. The square pillars expanded directly to form a shield-shaped city gate, standing in front of the stone monument. The city gate of the Tiger's Bite. Advertisement. The white-toothed gate shaped like a wheel tore out the space, sealing the left side. The Gate of the Turtle Armor. A huge hexagonal gate composed of a large number of hexagonal black light crystal spiritual shields stands on the right side. Phoenix Wings City Gate. The huge crimson blade is connected to a large number of long spiritual force latches, like huge wings that seal the rear. The four beasts block the door. As soon as the voice fell, the blade on one side of the wings turned into a dark sky cover directly above it, and at the same time the square enchantment also stretched out from below the surface to envelop the whip. The whole is like the horror beast of God opening its blood basin and biting in its mouth. For a moment, the heavenly stone steel was sealed in all directions, and everyone's eyes would burst out, staring dully at the dazzling Bakud that consisted of spiritual power. In the next moment, the ark's energy burst directly, and everyone only felt the rushing beasts of the surface start to tremble. The dazzling fire spattered from under the steel, the terrifying high temperature eroded the steel column, and dense cracks spread up from below. The stone steel was forced to utter a painful moan, and it was broken into pieces in the next moment, and was crushed into ashes by the gushing fire light. The dazzling white light core continuously emits a vast energy storm in the center of the surface, constantly scouring in all directions, and the surface collapses into nothingness. The dazzling white light core continuously emits a vast energy storm in the center of the surface, constantly scouring in all directions, and the surface collapses into nothingness. Buzzing. Layers of tides are distorting the air in the barrier, and the space is bombarded with bizarre phenomena, but this horror is equivalent to a small equivalent of TNT energy constantly impacting the barrier. Ripples like water waves continued to rise on the outside of the barrier, making the scalp of others numb for fear of breaking a hole by then. Is it all right? Thunderbird asked Jiaoshi timidly, and only a Byakugan responded to him. The flashing was already out at this time. Uzumaki wanted to get in, but he felt how his heroic identity could run first, and directly dissipated the portal, leaving the elder brother and sister Lauren, who was going to collapse behind him, speechless for a while. Have you prepared a portal anyway? Sir, the high energy response is decreasing, and unknown forces are constantly exuding mysterious fluctuations suppressing the explosion. Jiawiscan reminder made Tony a sigh of relief. Yu Guang glanced at Sumo, and secretly said, "It's really bottomless." When I first met Sumo, he used a strange flame group to kill the terrorists, and the Terminator T-800 later opened his eyes. Then the technology used by Ji Luosi made him dumbfounded. The ion cannon was much more advanced than his palm energy cannon, and he couldn't guess the core used for such a large energy output. Not to mention that the incinerator cannon is stronger than his fierce core beam. According to the comics, it would destroy the power of a mountain with a single shot. Advertisement. Tony, who was beaten in his field of expertise, worked hard to perfect the Mark 9 armor of the Mark 9 now. You must know that Tony is only a Mark 7 in the Reunion 1, which is far too much. Given time to start a war in cheatery, I'm afraid Tony will dig out the bleeding edge armor early. Tony never feels that he is weaker than others. He and Sumo are friends but also competitors. In his opinion, Ji Luosi was developed by Sumo. So at least he should surpass Sumo in this field, Tony vowed to himself. The energy tide visible to the naked eye has shrunk, the barrier no longer makes a squeezing sound, and finally disappears completely under everyone's desire. Sumo waved his hand and the four beasts immediately disappeared. The air was burnt and gave off an unpleasant odor that made his nose twitch. Call a wind-style little ninjutsu was released at random, and everyone slowly moved forward and saw a square hole with a length of about 5 meters in the line of sight. The pothole has long been empty, and even the air has been evaporated before, and now is the influx of new air. It's finally over. Roddy, with a cold sweat on his back, screamed from the headmaster. It was the twists and turns that made him feel uneasy. At this time, the police sirens outside the exhibition hall sounded, and the father-in-law Chief George led the team to see them. Pepper and Hawkeye and SHIELD agents arrived at the same time, and Tony was not happy at all. Because the armor of the previous generations activated in his warehouse except for the first mark which was modified by Obadiah was destroyed at this time, it was only late at this time. Obtained, the speed really makes him very dissatisfied. This gave him the idea of developing an independent support system in outer space, which is the prototype of Veronica. It is not limited to the anti-Hulk air conditioning system, but a multi-part system consisting of orbiting satellites to improve the adaptability of the Mark series armor. Lorna had already arrived at this time, just waiting for the matter to end. She walked to Sumo's side nervously, a little hesitant. "I see, Professor Charles told me, and I will leave now." Sumo turned his head to Gwen, embarrassed. Go, come back early. Tonight, my father wants to invite you to be a guest at home." Gwen was very understanding kind. After speaking, he walked to George and said something, seeming to be finishing off the field. "Let's go." Sumo directly pulled Lorna's hand to release the illusion to interfere with ordinary people's vision, waved out any door and locked the position between mind and movement. Crunch. Target, Sokovia. Chapter 147. Sokovia is a small country, and it has been in the process of changing regimes and economic collapse. There is a huge gap between the ideas of high-level and civilians, and there are countless demonstrations. The Maximov family lived in this country, although Tenton was noisy, but after all, he didn't use his sword or gun, so he could live a good life. Even if there is no exquisite house, there is only a low-rise house. Even if there are no cute dolls and expensive game consoles, the two brothers and sisters still feel warm and happy. Of course, the two would argue from time to time about who was born first to take the lead. What should have been a perfect family on the day of 10 years old, a family of 4 laughed and sat at the table and ate dinner happily. It's not that a sumptuous dinner has become the last gathering of a family, and the damn nightmare just happened without warning. The too slow regime change made the warlords lose their patience. They launched an armed war to seize power, which started that night. The shadow of the war was silently shrouded in Sokovia, and a shell directly pierced the roof and floor and collapsed into a big hole, swallowing the parents in the house. After the house began to collapse, Pietro and Wanda hurriedly rolled to the bottom of the boat, and then another shell smashed down. The two looked desperate and waited for death to come. They didn't know who to ask for help. Their parents were swallowed in and never crawled out again. They dared not move a tiny bit for fear of detonating the guided 843 bomb. For 2 full days, they had never drank water or eaten, and were in fear all day long. At the same time, the line of Stark Industries looked like an evil devil and sneered at them. After the war, the 2 pitiful siblings were found and sent to an orphanage. They became fatherless and motherless overnight, begging their parents to come back, but the 2 ruthless corpses shattered their wish. That is to say, on that day, the 2 awakened their mutant ability. Wanda had the ability to modify the probability of surrealism, and Pietro had all aspects of high-speed movement. Not only the explosive growth, but also the thinking ability and metabolism will speed up. In addition, Wanda was not familiar with the ability to modify probability, and Pietro suddenly became the centerpiece because his temperament was too irritable. As they grew older, their hatred of Tony Stark became stronger and stronger, and finally they began to embark on a road of revenge. However, they had not waited until they walked out of the Sokovia border but encountered an attack. Rumble. In a dense and leafy forest, a roar suddenly sounded to start the birds flying into the sky. "Hey!" In a remote tree hole, a sturdy silver-haired young man exhaled breathlessly on the vine. "Advertisement, did the damn robot come from Tony Stark?" Pietro said angrily. "No, Tony Stark never cared how many people he killed." A young girl with dark red hair and slightly green hair beside Pietro shook her head and answered. "She is Wanda, who looks a little younger than Pietro and was actually born 30 seconds before he became an older sister." "Hey, let's get out of here quickly. These robots will find us soon," Pietro reminded Wanda, who had been holding the magic ball after a short break. 3 dark red magic spheres have been hovering around Wanda, a little shaky. "Pietro is useless, we've been running for a whole day, and every time we are caught up like a cat catching a mouse." Wanda's constantly changing gestures, his slender jade hand scratching something in the air, said. They encountered a strange robot just yesterday, and what made them feel horrified was that the robot would deform. It hides like a chameleon for a while, and it spit out the water jet formed by the current is completely beyond their imagination. Fortunately, this robot has not displayed strong destructiveness until now, and the 2 talents have a chance to escape. "What are you doing? You are not proficient in controlling the magic ball," Pietro said with annoyance. At the beginning, Wanda's ability was to manipulate the probability of reality through magic balls. The effective time of this method of casting is very short, and it is also limited to the line of sight. It requires constant change of gestures and a high level of concentration. At the beginning, Wanda's ability was to manipulate the probability of reality through magic balls. The effective time of this method of casting is very short and limited to the line of sight. It requires constant change of gestures and a high degree of concentration. Sometimes it is not under her control and will automatically explode. He didn't know what kind of modification probability this was. It was obviously a magic bomb, or the kind that would blow himself up at every turn. Seft, I am using chaos magic to match reality to modify the probability, which will enhance my ability. Wanda replied intently, then paused and said, I also called the office of the Hero Academy in the magazine for emergency help. This is not the United States, they can't come at all. Pietro said helplessly. Does your chaos magic really work? Pietro has been with Wanda day and night, and suddenly told him not long ago that he possessed a power called chaos magic. After many experiments, this magic doesn't seem to be a mutant ability, and Wanda doesn't know how it appeared. Wanda flipped through Byakugan. Can she say that this magic was possessed by a god who claimed to be black magic appeared in her dreams? He said that Pietro would not believe it. Advertisement because the dream was too real. Wanda felt that this god had a bad intention and didn't practice chaos magic very much on weekdays. So now she has reached the stage of illusion. In the current crisis, she knows that the amazing potential of chaos magic must be used in combination with variant abilities to overcome difficulties. While thinking about it, it was obviously the first time I tried it, but it was surprisingly smooth, as if the way chaos magic was opened is like this. All right. As soon as the voice fell, the magic ball suddenly disappeared, and Pietro was wondering if the misty red light suddenly appeared around him when he failed. Bang bang bang. There were several sounds of heavy objects falling around, and the missile banged on the tree with just a shoo sound. The big tree covering them was directly blown to pieces, exposing the figures of the two of them, and the spattering debris and gushing firelight were blocked by a thin layer of red light. Why don't you fusion earlier? Pietro shouted in a frightened and depressed voice. You must know that a barrier was formed before the magic ball, and the range was small and weak. Stop talking nonsense, look around, it's not good. Pietro heard the words, his entire face turned black after the tour, and the sound of well, you kept humming. In addition to a huge silver-white robot, some well-equipped soldiers ran out of the woods. Who are you? Sokovia has settled down in the shock of 10 years ago, and its national strength is weak, and there are not many national defense forces. This group of people in front of them is by no means the National Defense Forces. At this moment, the crowd separated, and Baron Straker walked out leisurely, lifted his single-sided glasses, and said with a smile on his face, the two little ghosts can really run, but they are really moving now. He turned his head and confessed to the men on the side, after the data is collected, you have to live your mouth. The mutants can also use it to try the transformation experiment. Chapter 148. Transform the experiment. Pietro became furious as soon as he heard this. As a mutant, of course, he knew that the most material for human experiments came from their ethnic group. Obviously Baron Struck doesn't want to talk nonsense with Pietro now, and waits until he gets caught go back and talk about it. The non-commissioned officer nodded calmly, and when Baron Struck received a message, he turned and left, and asked his subordinates to step back 2 steps to finish the finishing touches. This guy. Pietro looked at the back of the departing Baron Straker and felt extremely humiliated. Wanda reminded, don't be distracted. The sentry robot, standing still, began to emit golden light from its pupils, and looked down at them condescendingly. With his eyes connected to the display screen, there was the short Bolivar, who was ecstatic and said with joy, the two scumbags can run well. If it weren't for the lack of data, it would have ended long ago. Although he blew to the big shots, the sentry robot can instantly transform itself to face different mutants. But this version is actually the final model he envisioned. Now it's just that the second generation of the sentry robot can't instantly replicate the variants, but it can absorb variant genes and save them for sharing. At present, there are only a few in the sentry robot gene bank except for the magical girl, so Pietro can take Wanda to run around. Fortunately, Baron Strack has been rooted in Northern Europe for a long time, and Sokovia is within sight so that the two mutants have nowhere to escape. Bolivar's eyes glowed fiery through the display. The silver-haired man's high-speed movement ability is currently the most lacking in sentry robots. Once obtained, it is like a god. The robot doesn't know what exhaustion is, and will join the special service team to make their C-Place debut. Restoring the family glory and killing all the damned mutants is just around the corner. This girl couldn't see through her abilities. Bolivar, who was so violently scratching her hair, didn't care about it. As for the gene extraction, it is not his business for Baron Straker to die or live. In the dense forest, the sentry robot stared at the two siblings striding forward, their hands suddenly turned into high-pressure water jets. Wanda directly pushed with both hands, and the faint red substantive ripples swayed in midair to form a red barrier. Swish! The high-pressure water gun burst into the red special energy field, and the powerful impact made Wanda step back against the barrier. At this time Pietro had disappeared and approached the sentry robot at a speed that human eyes could not see clearly. The fast Pietro is a kick to the leg of the sentry robot. He has a physique beyond ordinary people, and his Achilles tendon is harder than steel. Boom! A dull crash sounded. Advertisement: the flying kick under the inertia brought great impact and oscillated along the outer shell, and the sentry machine that was spraying the water gun directly staggered forward. Wanda seized the opportunity to throw a light red energy group directly onto Sentry's head armor, and exploded directly like a high-explosive grenade with a bang. "It's over?" Pietro asked blankly when he returned to Wanda. My sister's hand exploded a little bit fiercely. He clearly saw his head exploded in half. "No, I am the brother." Wanda didn't respond, but just stared at the sentry machine, and Pietro turned his head and throbbed in his heart. Sentry, whose head was exploded, did not reveal all kinds of sophisticated circuits, but was splashed out by unknown melting knights. The sentry robot is nominally a robot that has completely departed from the category of all mechanism after absorbing the magic woman gene, and has become a half-bodied body similar to the Terminator. The sentry splashed out in the night did not get scrapped, but stood upright, and at the same time, a silver-white stream of water appeared on the surface of the shell. In the shock of the siblings, all the places where the water went upstream were repaired intact, and a new iron head appeared after a while. This is a self-healing gene similar to a salamander extracted from a mutant. Bolivar laughed triumphantly in the office when he saw it. Mutants have many abilities that look like animals. For example, the toad of the Brotherhood is not aggressive but is better for auxiliary purposes. The salamander self-healing gene is certainly not as good as Wolverine's level, but fortunately it is paired with a brainless robot like Sentry. As long as the core is not broken, self-healing still works, but it is much slower. As long as the core is not broken, self-healing still works, but it is much slower. The recovered Sentry machine was directly inserted into the soil soaked with water between the two palms. Crackling! The electric light blew up in the two people's hair tingling, and the electric snake passed directly from the sentry robot's arms into the moist soil, and the blue light flickered towards the two of Wanda. The speed of the electric current hitting the muddy soil was so fast that only Pietro reacted and quickly picked up his sister and ran back. Every electric snake neighed on his body 2 or 3 times before being thrown on him by Pietro, but Pietro couldn't be happy, because the surrounding soldiers lifted sticks to connect to each other and then plunged into the ground. Hey! The arcs connected together like a big net directly trapping the two people and the sentry machine inside. The two sides are like fighting in the Colosseum. Only one side can survive. Obviously, even if the two brothers and sisters are alive, they still have to fight with them. 0. Pietro went around angrily and completely unable to break through. Baron Strack came prepared, and since you run fast, there is no way for you to run. The all-round locked power grid made Pietro only go to dry land to let down Wanda, worrying, "What should I do? Fight out?" Advertisement. Wanda pressed his lips firmly, "Kide," and his whole body was filled with light red, and it suddenly rushed towards the sentry robot in all directions. Layers of red energy surging like waves hit the sentry machine, flying backwards like a cannonball. Bang! There was a crackling scream. The sentry robot was bombed directly onto the power grid, and directly tore a hole with its huge body in a hard shell. Go! Pietro has quick eyes and hands, and when he picks up Wanda, he rushes through the sentry robot's body and through the soldier directly behind the break in the power grid. Beep! Just as Pietro showed joy, an extremely faint sound came from his ear when he stepped on a piece of soil. Wanda and Pietro's complexion directly solidified, and Pietro couldn't stop immediately in the swift, fires burst out from the ground beneath their feet. Rumble! Successive blasts lifted from the heel. Run! Pietro's veins burst out, his whole body exploded at a faster speed, and a sea of flames rolled behind him. Puff! The landmine of contact and chain reaction caught up with Pietro at the end of the ambush, and the violent heat wave beat the two people to roll on the dirt again and again. Wanda couldn't help vomiting a pool of blood, and the magic burst with all his strength caused severe pain in his body, and this time, he could no longer fight. On the one hand, Pietro's heel had been blasted with bleeding holes, and if the future Quicksilver was completely unharmed, he could walk out slowly. But the current Pietro's ability is immature, and Pietro, who has reached the upper limit, can't escape at all, plus the previous day's escape. Damn it! Bolivar was furious and shouted at the non-commissioned officer, "Catch them, I want this woman's mutant gene." Without his reminder, the non-commissioned officer asked everyone to surround him, raising his anesthesia gun and shooting out. "Call out!" Click! A figure appeared in the exhausted Wanda's twin pupils, and a terrifying fire burst out from waving his hands, like a flame of hope burning everything. Pietro raised his head and looked at the strange man, but was just as he was about to say something, but was fainted by the other person's next sentence. "Hello, brother-in-law." Chapter 149. The fire was everywhere, and the soldiers were burned by the sudden flames as if they were in a sea of fire. ZZ. Bursts of burning smell spread from it, causing Lorna to cast a blank glance at the initiator and lift up Wanda. Suemo urged his shoulders and waved away the flames, and walked to Pietro to greet him. "Is it okay, brother-in-law?" "You." When Pietro heard this, there was someone who had taken advantage of the vacancy to grab his sister, and suddenly the blood could not be supplied, and his head was dizzy and he fainted. Brother." Suemo hurried up to check. He was relieved and only fainted. It was fine without hanging up. Wanda listened next to him, and the fragile red color appeared on his cheeks, staring at Suemo. "I thought it was Prince Charming before, but I didn't expect it to be an idiot, so I wanted her to agree with him so quickly." Suemo felt that someone was staring at 793 and turned his head to look at the elder sister's staring gaze, a little unclear. "Could it be that I am too handsome?" Lorna, as Sumo's pillow, knew what he was thinking when he smiled, and said in a bad mood, "Don't be narcissistic, hurry up and take Pietro and leave here." "Are you mutants?" Wanda softly leaned on Lorna's shoulder, wondering. Just now Sumo's hand of flame caused her to have this idea. At this time, the sentry robot with self-healing genes got up again and rushed towards them. "He is not, I am." Lorna didn't even look at her, spread her hand and squeezed it fiercely. Magnetic force madly invaded the sentry robot. In Wanda's horrified face, the sentry robot was suddenly crushed by a force of strength, and torn into pieces under the sound of click. "No. This is magnetism." Bolivar wailed heartbreakingly. He saw from the beginning the hard work of the tail was crushed easily. Lorna Dan once showed her face at the opening ceremony of the Hero Academy, but her abilities were previously unknown among the major forces. He hadn't heard about what happened at the Hanmer Industry exhibition so quickly. After all, the two happened in such a short time. Magnetic field control is the biggest enemy of his sentry robot. Bolivar smashed the monitor through the glass with a cup, and his little head was crazy about how to crack it. "You." Advertisement Lorna Dan. Lorna smiled. "Wanda Gionge Maximove, that's my brother Pietro." Wanda pointed at his fainted brother. "Ah, Suemo." Suemo coughed dryly while carrying Pietro, then paused and said, "Lorna, my love." "Humph, this gentleman said to my younger brother as your lover, brother-in-law, I doubt your loyalty to Lorna." When Wanda heard the words, Xiumei raised her eyebrows and sneered back. "Don't you know?" Lorna asked back then. This is back to Wanda dumbfounded. "What am I going to do? Should I know about this kind of thing?" The dazed Wanda made the two of them look at each other. It seemed that neither of them knew their own life experience. Suemo opened his mouth. "The sentence just now has a reason, let you go to the Hero Academy for treatment first." In Wanda's bewilderment, he went through any door directly to the inside of the Hero Academy, where Charles had been waiting for a long time. Watching Wanda and Pietro were taken to the medical room, Suemo asked Charles, "They don't know their life experience, how did you know?" Watching Wanda and Pietro were taken to the medical room, Suemo asked Charles, "They don't know their life experience, how did you know?" A flash of light flashed in his eyes, and even the person involved didn't know how Charles learned about it, which is too strange. Charles in the wheelchair raised a kind smile on his face. "Kide, when Wanda called for help, Jean saw some phantoms. Eric was inside and it was not difficult to guess based on the color of the two of them." Charles didn't go on to say, for example, who was the mother of the two, and Suemo didn't intend to ask the roots about his abilities, since it is Qin, it is not surprising. After all, before the Apocalypse War, Qin had many dreams of a terrorist event about to happen. Su Mou Guang glanced at the piano that exuded a mature atmosphere while pushing the wheelchair. Secretly said in her heart, the power of the Black Phoenix is subtly affecting Qin, otherwise how could she have foreseen if her telepathy is not as strong as Charles? Does this mean that Heiken can no longer be trapped in the mental cage set up by Charles, and is about to blacken? The appearance of Heiken was a heavy blow to the Hero Academy, which All Might and Charles couldn't handle. Have Uncle Wolf stabbed? Not to mention that it can really go like a movie? Wouldn't it be better if such a good power could be transformed into a used one? Advertisement. Su Mo couldn't help but hesitated. Why is it so difficult to be a famous cartoonist in Marvel Universe? Su Mo asked again, does Magneto know? I don't know yet, I don't want these two children to approach Eric with hatred. Charles shook his head and sighed. It seems that Charles also knows about Stark Industries missiles, which makes Su Mo a little bit tricky. Professor, you should know that such defective duds are not allowed to be sold by a proud person like Tony. And this kind of thing has nothing to do with the producer. The previous sentence was a bit reluctant, and Tony could not have to pass every missile, and the defective rate might really exist. Of course, it is also possible that counterfeit missiles were faked to sell at high prices. There are no Stark Industries and Hanmer Industries, and there are no fewer than 10 arms sales in the United States. Finding a producer is really a temporary solution, not a permanent cure. In addition, the former arms department was managed by Opadri, who was a long-standing man. Tony probably didn't even sign his name. Just as Wanda sarcastically, he himself didn't know how many people he had killed. It was only after being immersed in the scene and eating the fruits of his horror that he realized that his weapons had persecuted so many families. Whether the matter is correct or not has long been buried in the dust of history. This is a silly account, perhaps only the underground Obadiah knows this. Whether Tony can carry the pot or not depends on how the siblings look at it now. Of course I know that there is an urgent need to stabilize their emotions. Charles and 5.5 people slowly stopped outside the medical room. So you didn't tell them the truth? Lorna said. The two were half-brothers and sisters, and she was worried now. The whole family appeared suddenly like this. Hold on. Su Mo also agrees with Charles's idea. The two hateful people may not take the Magneto to demolish the Stark Tower. At that time, the mutant hero image that was finally established will be ruined. Su Mo doesn't want to be like this. Then he will have to run out to wipe the pie shares. Su Mo looked at the time, there was still some distance from the late hour, and greeted Olmert who had just arrived, and walked towards the Stark building. You have to take the pot off Tony. Su Mo thinks he is busier than the hero himself. Chapter 150. When Su Mo was about to go to Stark Tower, Tony was the first to send out an invitation to have a lively party in a private seaside villa. Hi, this is a superhero party. What is the point of this Tenton's pragmatic cartoonist to show off? When Su Mo walked through the door, Tony Stark, wearing a Mark 9 model, deliberately made a high profile. Shouted. Tony is like a childish joke, like a child who hasn't relaxed for a long time. Su Mo couldn't help but happily said, of course Mr. Stark is younger than me. Oh, I didn't expect you to say that to me. Tony pulled the old man with his face when he heard the words. Although he is mature and handsome, his age is a heart disease. Tony did not immediately immerse himself in research after the Hanmer Industries incident but realized the importance of the team. When I got home, I invited a few superheroes to the party, hoping to get to know each other. And these heroes are of course the Fantastic Four in the same adversity. As for the little spider, if you are too young, you won't be invited. There are also some street volunteers, like the ones in Hell's Kitchen, that will not appear on such occasions. So Su Mo looked at the 4 superheroes in the party and teased 24, Tony, this is not a superhero party. Of course not. Saitama and Ermat, I can't invite you to communicate with me, so let you tell them. Tony gestured. Under Jewis's inspection, the two of them didn't even have a mobile phone. You were out of breath. He paused and said, why didn't you see your partner? One is Magneto's daughter, and the other is the police chief's lady. Wow, I don't usually see that you let yourself go like this. Faced with Tony's teasing words, Su Mo counterattacked, thank you for the advice of senior, you are a master in this respect. As the headliner of the entertainment news, Tony was a woman who had been with him before. He really didn't know whether it was empty or not, and the kidney was really good. Tony gave a dry laugh, and Yu Guang glanced at Pepper, who was leaning against the bar, and he had long been in his heart, but the successive emergencies in recent days made him a little bit embarrassed. The lace news in the past has long since disappeared. Both Saitama and Ermat can't come. I'm afraid you will attract the attention of the Black Chief when you open this party. Su Mo and Pepper greeted each other and sat on the sofa with Tony. The long-lost Fantastic Four Thunderbolt Johnny talked to the model girl at the beach maturely, while the Stone Man originally hugged his new blind girlfriend. You said that you are so active, and you are still intimate if you have nothing to talk about. Advertisement. The Invisible Woman. Susan and Pepper talked about the 8 trigrams news and smiled from time to time. Mr. Fantastic didn't know where he went. They were not surprised or noticed by Su Mo's arrival. The fate of one side was also met when Su Mo transformed into IS INVINCIBLE. In their opinion, Su Mo is just a friend of a superhero, not a superpower, and his status as a cartoonist and corporate chairman has nothing to do with them. I just want to find some friends. It's okay for this incident. The last time Dr. Banner became Hulk and hate it. For the first time, I felt that death was so close to me. Tony put his hands on his chin, and said solemnly, I always thought Iron Man could protect the world, but when things happened, I was intentional but powerless, and I could only sit and wait. It seems that Rachel's appearance at the time really awakened Tony from Iron Man's dream. It turns out that Iron Man alone cannot protect the world. So you want to recruit partners to fight against emergencies. How does Su Mo feel that he is getting more and more away from the direction of the movie? His butterfly flapping his little wings has already set the course of time. Could it be that Tony also formed a squad of Avengers? If so, then Avengers will not be restricted by the Security Council. After all, the original body was authorized by them. However, the Maverick Tony didn't follow his normal thinking. Actually, I didn't plan to form a team. At the beginning, I invited Dr. Reed to develop a system with me. Su Mo looked confused. Why did you two go together? 2 supercentury scientists collaborated on the research and development of the system, and what should I do if the things that have been messing up accidentally become villains? Go, I'll show you the new system. Tony walked out of the steel armor and took Su Mo to the side room. This is an independent laboratory where the new Mark was born. Mr. Fantastic Rydella quickly danced on the virtual interface with a rubber hand, and countless data streams kept falling from above, looking like building blocks. Hi, Mr. Su Mo's cartoons are very beautiful, Reed Richards. Reed took the time to stretch his arm and shook hands with Su Mo, responding in a hurry. One Piece's Luffy makes me feel surprised that my power is more than that. Thank you for the compliment, Mr. Reed seems to be living a very happy life. Su Mo teased, making Reed a little bit confused about what this meant, and seemed to have no malice. Advertisement. So far so good. Reed, who couldn't understand it, continued to tap the keyboard, and the 3 virtual interfaces were constantly tapped and swiped on his rubber hand. As a generation of car god, Tony was not comparable to Reed, a silly otaku, Ziobai. He immediately made an association to know what it meant. Tony turned his head and asked, when will Reed marry Susan? No, Susan hasn't agreed. Tisk tusk. Tony shook his head when he heard the words, and let out a disappointed sound. Reed didn't know what the 2 people were talking about, so he simply ignored it. Su Mo, I originally planned to develop the Veronica Global Support System, but I think about it again. Tony whispered softly, looking at the sea-like data flow at 233, why not just put the Earth in the armor? One who can support the whole world can also fight criminals all over the world, and use the steel core that I am mass-producing to thoroughly monitor the world. This magnificent system will have an independent artificial intelligence system. I named it Ultron. Unlike Tony's uncontrollable excitement, Su Mo showed a surprised expression on his face. He was not shocked by this grand system but by the name. Ultron was created after Tony obtained the psychic scepter from the Hydra base after the reunion 1. Its internal production is catalyzed by spiritual gems. Tony and Banner were born before they even finished the frame. Someone in the previous life said that it was Thanos remotely controlling the soul gems that gave birth to the distorted Ultron, so Ultron wanted to destroy the world. Now the soul gem should be in Thanos's hands. The birth of Ultron may not be so easy. I know you are also shocked by this plan. Even though the workload is too much now, Reed and I firmly believe that it can be completed. Tony talked eloquently, and Suemo was a little puzzled by his confident words. When the time comes, they will have to be supervillains. Tony, why are you throwing this pot on your back one by one?
If you're enjoying the story so far and want to hear the next parts, don't forget to like the video. It really helps the channel grow. And if you'd like me to continue the series, drop a comment below letting me know. Your feedback and support keep these audiobooks going strong. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next one.